Chapter 756. Looks like we're almost there. Batman was very busy. Not only did he have to climb the mountain by himself, but he also had to take out a device from time to calculate the location. Hearing that they were almost there, the few of them heaved a sigh of relief. Superman saw that they were not in good condition and flew up himself. His supervision penetrated the mountain and searched for the secret hideout of the Dino people. Found it. The enemy seems to have discovered me. I'll go over first. Superman finished his sentence and flew over. I'll go help. Thea chased after him without another word. She was too lazy to walk. Diana shook her head in amusement and chased after him in a flash of light. Seeing that the green light Hal was about to fly over, the Sea King and Barry hurriedly stopped him. Even if you want to fly, you have to bring us along. What if the enemy is defeated by the time we walk over ourselves? Wouldn't our trip to the snowy mountain be in vain? Hal could only use instantiation to bring a few of them along. Unknowingly, he was much slower than the other three. On the other side, Thea arrived almost at the same time as Superman. Diana was slightly slower by less than 2 seconds. What greeted them was a huge stone door that was more than 5 meters tall. The stone door was dark gray in color, as if it had been standing in the mountains for countless years. In the middle of the stone door, there was a relief sculpture of a Buddhist Asura with 3 heads and 6 arms. The sculpture was very lifelike. Every gaze and every movement was filled with a murderous aura. Even Thea, the goddess of art, felt that it was not bad. The 3 of them looked at each other and decided to leave the dirty work of breaking the door to Superman. The owner of the stone door saw their actions and wisely opened the mechanism slowly. The stone door creaked and moved to the left and right, slowly opening up a small path. We've finally caught up. Hal Jordan brought the 3 who could not fly and arrived just in time. The 7 of them had gathered and walked in together. The path was very narrow and could only accommodate 1 person. Naturally, Superman had to walk in front, Thea in the middle and Diana at the back. The temperature in the mountain was still cold, but it was much better than outside. Student Salted Fish Sea King was showing signs of thawing. Dong footsteps sounded, and 2 robots blocked the way. The androids were very similar to the timer star that Thea and Batman had fought before. They also had a hunched body and walked upright. They had claws and a tail and had the appearance of a lizard. However, their bodies were completely covered in metal. 4 electronic eyes glowing with red light swept across everyone before finally focusing on Superman. The electronic voice was very unpleasant, as if a metal was scraping glass. It has been confirmed that the cell enhancement is due to the activity of the yellow dwarf star G2Y, Earth. The probability that the biological test confirms that the target is a standard human is 0%. The outer garment contains a mixture of 14 elements, which is inconsistent with the existing elements on Earth. Conclusion: the probability of the target being an original Kryptonian is as high as 96%, which is in line with the target setting expectations. The 2 robots scanned Superman as if there was no one around. Then, under Hal Jordan's vigilant gaze, they turned around and left at the same speed as when they came. The heroes were fearless and continued to walk in. After passing through a long corridor, the road gradually widened. Seeing that there was no danger at the back, Diana walked to Thea's side. What do you think of the enemy inside? He's no match for us, Thea answered without thinking. At most, he was a slightly more powerful alien. 7 people besieging him? That would be giving him face. Diana was 1000% convinced of her lover's judgment. She also let down her guard and discussed the relief murals around them in a low voice. She also talked about her work experience in the Louvre. The 7 of them came to a square paved with bricks. 18 huge stone pillars propped up a huge space that covered an area of nearly 1,000 square meters and was 50 meters high. There was a corridor that the 7 of them had walked through in the north, south, east, and west. Looking at the color of the rocks, it was at least 2,000 years old. One could only imagine how much manpower was used to excavate such a huge space inside the mountain. The architectural style was full of ancient Buddhist symbols. White elephants, lotus flowers, monks sitting cross-legged, and various stone carvings could be seen everywhere. It was not difficult to guess that this was most likely some religious holy land that was later occupied by the Dino aliens. A guy with a blue flame head, golden armor, and a black cloak was looking at them with interest. His gaze was focused on Superman, as if he was admiring some object. Hey! Thea felt that this guy was very different from the Dino aliens. Ordinary Dino aliens had a hunched back like a lizard, but this guy had a straight back like a king. Other than the blue flames, she could also sense some Dino alien's aura. He was completely different from her own race. I knew that there was a Kryptonian in the spaceship when it crashed. In the blink of an eye, you have grown so big. The other party's words were shocking, and the heroes instantly became alert. This guy actually knew the time when Superman came to Earth. Or was he present at that time? The Dino alien's blue flame head swept across the rest of the heroes. When he saw Thea and Diana, he was obviously stunned. Who were they? Or were they from some race? Thea met his gaze and sneered. She took the opportunity to strike him with fear. How dare you? You should kneel before the great Lord Hespentor, not play these damned tricks. It was obvious that Thea's fear had reminded him of some bad memories. His original arrogance was instantly shattered, and he roared in exasperation. He turned to look at Superman. Kryptonian, I will give you a chance. Kill these Earthlings, and I promise to give you new knowledge. This planet can also be yours to rule. He thought that the Kryptonian should have kowtowed to him for his generous offer. However, all 7 of them looked at him as if he was a retard. Was this guy an idiot? Diana gave Thea an inquisitive look. Haha, this is hilarious. Thea laughed impudently. She had even provoked Darkseid before. This ridiculous alien in front of her really thought she was a pushover. You have a death wish. The Dino alien named Hespentor stretched out his hand and shot a blue beam of light that was half a meter in diameter at Thea. She did not know how her opponent had gotten rid of her fear. Thea had been on her guard all this time. Faced with the enemy's attack, she did not hesitate to draw her holy sword and slashed at the blue beam. The holy sword was a little sluggish at the initial contact, but Thea quickly increased her strength and cut the blue beam in half. What a strange power. It's vast and majestic. It's a little similar to my holy sword. This feeling. It feels a little like Buddhism. This is not your original power, or rather, it's not the original power of a Dino alien. Thea looked at the skull in Hespentor's blue flames. There was a frontal bone, a nasal bone, and a jawbone. This skull obviously belonged to an Earthling. Thea looked at it again, and the more she looked, the more suspicious she became. And your golden armor, the patterns on it. Is this the armor of the Akalanatha? Are you an alien who believes in Buddhism? Chapter 757. Hespentor stared at Thea for a long time but could not figure out her origins. He had never even seen an old god that had been sealed for 1,000 years, let alone a new one. Earthling, you have good taste. How about this? Help me complete a mission, and I'll forgive you. You have the right to kneel at my feet. F***ck, where did this idiot come from? Even Darkseid had to think twice before saying this. You're too blind. Thea rolled up her sleeves and was about to chop him up when Batman spoke in her earpiece. Listen to what his mission is. She quickly realized. Hey, that's right, there was no harm in getting information. However, it was impossible for her to kneel. She could only use her acting skills. Her face was pale, and she pretended to be severely injured by the blue light but was still holding on. What are you trying to do? She said, pretending to be strong. Even Superman and the rest were stunned by her excellent acting skills. She would definitely win an Oscar this year. The Dimo native introduced himself arrogantly, saying that he was the eldest son of Halspire, the leader of the Second Territory, Montus, and a bunch of other names that they did not understand. If they ignored the fact that his planet had been blown to smithereens, and that his people had not only exiled him, there were not many of them left. Just listening to him recite his family tree made them think, wow, he's a big shot. He looks so high and mighty. My benevolence is limited to today. You are all elites among Earthlings. Be thankful for this rare gift. Today, You have the honor of calling me master. Hespentor got more excited as he spoke. He stretched his hands to the maximum, as if he was releasing some gospel. Blue energy surged from his body, and there was even a faint singing voice. Thea was well versed in psychology. From his behavior, she could tell that this guy really believed what he was saying. He was not provoking them. He really felt that he had given the Righteous Alliance a great gift. However, his trash talk disgusted them. Green Lantern HL wanted to charge forward a few times. Even the good-tempered Flash wanted to beat him up before questioning him. Unfortunately, Batman stopped them. The sly Batman even signaled for Thea to continue. The young mistress could only use an illusion to show Hazepont. In the illusion, she arranged for Batman to be the first one, and he fell to his knees with a thud. She and Diana were standing far away from each other. Due to the visual error, it was impossible to tell whether they were kneeling or not. Good, good. Your humility has allowed you to escape certain death. I have to say that you have good taste. High-Spenter was getting happier and happier. The people of the Righteous Alliance looked at each other. What did we do to make you so happy? Only Diana sensed Thea's magic fluctuations. I'll give you a mission. If you can do it, this planet and this young galaxy will be yours. Thea didn't waste any time. She controlled the Batman in the illusion to kowtow twice. In a place called Jupiter by the people of Earth, there is an ancient temple of my race. I've obtained a few words from the remnant will of the Cortex Prime. There is a weapon that can overturn the entire universe. Your mission is to get it for me and give it to me. In return for your loyalty, I'll allow you to rule this planet forever. High-Spenter's tone carried a hint of madness. The heroes looked at each other. Was this guy an idiot? They didn't do anything, and he spilled the beans on his own. We have to get rid of him, and then go to Jupiter. Superman felt a sense of urgency. The so-called weapon that could overturn the world was a bit boastful, but they couldn't ignore it. Then let's go. Thea dispelled the illusion. The scene in front of him disappeared, and High-Spenter was slightly stunned. How could he not know that he had been fooled by the people of Earth, whom he regarded as ants? Just as he was about to curse, he saw Thea raise her hand and send out a bolt of lightning. He hurriedly changed his form and dodged the attack. Superman's casserole-sized fist followed closely behind. This alien was also considered powerful. He tilted his head slightly at the critical moment and used the blue flames to wrap around Superman in the opposite direction. At the critical moment, Diana kicked him in the stomach, and on the other side, the Sea King's trident came crashing down. As a great existence who could exchange a few blows with Darkseid, Thea didn't participate in the siege. Instead, she carefully observed High-Spenter's combat strength. This guy was exiled by his race, and he was indeed unique. It was similar to the Martian Manhunter's psychic power. This guy's ability also came from his psychic power, but the details were slightly different. The Martian Manhunter's psychic power was invisible, but this guy's ability brought out waves of blue light. It was a bit like the psionic energy in a certain game. However, the psionic energy, which was supposed to be pure blue, was mixed with a lot of yellow light. Logically speaking, when a type of energy had impurities, its strength would decrease exponentially. The purer it was, the more powerful it would be. This was basically an undeniable truth. However, this guy used this yellow substance as a supplement to his attacks, so other than Thea, the other 6 couldn't take him down. As the main force, Superman and Diana took the brunt of the attacks. Unfortunately, this enemy was a bit like the Martian Manhunter who didn't have a phobia of fire. His abilities were average, and he didn't have any obvious shortcomings. He could still fight back under the siege of everyone. Inside the mountain, the other 6 didn't dare to use many powerful moves. If they broke the mountain and caused the highest peak to collapse, it could cause a global geological disaster. This made them a little cautious. High-Spenter, on the other hand, didn't have such concerns. He went all out and fought against 6 people at once. It seemed like he was on par with them. Superman was holding back, unable to use his strength. On the other hand, Batman was throwing left and right uppercuts. He looked very fierce. Diana's dual swords were stained with Darkseid's Omega effect, and they were still in Thea's dimensional ring. She was using a high-grade imitation of a lightning spear. Her problem was similar to Superman's. She didn't dare to go all out and tried to control the enemy as much as possible. She couldn't even use 20% of her abilities. Normally, the power of lightning could suppress the mind and psionic energy to a certain extent. However, the yellow light that flashed on this guy's body from time to time could always resist the lightning. With the yellow energy on his body, Highspenter's strength and agility increased greatly. He seemed to be on par with Superman. The Flash's high-speed attacks were all blocked by his adamantine armor. Green light's materialization could only trap him temporarily. Highspenter also had the ability to transform between reality and illusion. The attacks of the remaining people weren't very effective. After familiarizing himself with their attacks, Highspenter began to fight back. His psionic energy turned into all kinds of sharp blades. Some flew at the others, and some were used as weapons in his hands. Seeing Hal Jordan's lantern ring appear, he fell into deep thought. The psionic energy immediately underwent a drastic change. It changed from a simple throwing knife to a variety of weapons. The blue psionic energy was pulled into a weapon that looked like a mace. It smashed down on the few of them. Chapter 758. That's quite impressive. Thea looked thoughtfully at the empty wall. Master, don't you think so? Stop hiding, I've already seen you guys. 9 illusory figures of old monks walked out from the wall. They were of different races. Some of them looked kind and benevolent, while others looked miserable. Behind the illusory figures, there was a faint Sanskrit chanting. It could be seen that they were all senior monks with profound cultivation. With the soul god's position, Thea noticed them hiding and peeking at her the moment she entered. However, she did not say anything as she could not tell if they were friends or foes. Goddess of unknown origins, please restrain your companions. The devil cannot be killed, only suppressed, said the old monk in the lead kindly. Thea did not say anything. Her starry eyes looked at the other party, waiting to hear the old monk's story. The story was cliché and cliché. Highspenter had been exiled to Earth by his people for 2,000 years. Therefore, his appearance was obviously different from the current timer star. In these 2,000 years, he did not eat, drink, or play. Instead, he was bitterly trained by a group of old monks behind closed doors. These 9 old monks came from different sects. They often fought with each other over some doctrinal issues. However, Highspenter, who descended from the sky, slowed down their sect's conflict. These were not monks in modern society. They existed in an era even older than Merlin, and each of them had magical powers. 9 against 1, they actually only had a slight advantage. The final result was a cliché method of suppressing the devil. What made Sia not know whether to laugh or cry was that this group of old monks did not know what an alien was. They saw Highspenter's strange appearance, his language barrier, his violent temper, and the fact that he killed people and massacred villages for no reason. They thought that he was some kind of evil demon or something similar. After they sealed him, they did nothing but chant scriptures at him every day, hoping to dispel the evil aura in his heart. Being exiled by his people, he definitely did not have any evil aura. The old monk's powers were not as effective as the green lamp's brainwashing, but they could not withstand the long duration. Even if their bodies had reached the end of their lifespan, their souls would still be there, chanting scriptures every day. After a long time, Highspenter strangely discovered that he also had a hint of Buddha nature. A guy who used psionic energy and was not inferior to a Martian hunter at his peak, had been forcefully converted just like that. As a psionic energy user and one of the best in his tribe, Highspenter subconsciously knew that he could not let Buddhism completely control him. He still had some resistance, which was why he was usually crazy and spoke incoherently. He would often be immersed in his own world like an idiot. At the end of the story, Master Highspenter finally succeeded in his cultivation. Relying on his Buddha nature, he forcefully removed the seal. However, after 2,000 years, his alien body turned to dust as soon as he came out. He could only use his remaining psionic energy to wrap around the remains of an eminent monk around him, surviving as a half-psionic half-corpse. The devil, us, and this seal have been deeply engraved in the mountain. Once one side is destroyed, the entire mountain will collapse, the old monk concluded. Thea's expression darkened. Even if the old monk's powers were profound, he could only see the mountain. He did not know how great of an impact it would have on the entire Asian continent if something happened to the highest peak. It would be an apocalyptic disaster. Thousands of miles or even tens of thousands of miles would be affected. The global climate would definitely change, and what would follow would be the rise of the sea level. All coastal cities would be affected. The death toll would be immeasurable. I promise you, I will help you reveal this devil. I have high hopes for your results. Work harder and convert him completely. Thea explained the consequences to the heroes. They did not dare to kill him. No one could bear such a serious consequence, not to mention that High Spenter was not that dangerous to the world. Superman was a little regretful. Wasn't it too reckless of him to start a fight with this lunatic? Hold him back. I will reactivate the seal, Thea said through the earpiece. After that, she apologized slightly and began to read the memories of the old monk. Soon, she found their sealing technique. It could be said that the Buddhist divine arts were the best at sealing techniques. There were many wonderful ideas, and even at her current height, she felt that her eyes lit up when she saw them. To be honest, the old monks were very unhappy with her forceful reading. However, they could not resist when they had a body, not to mention now that they were only left with their souls and had fallen in front of the God of Souls. Fortunately, Thea was not some evil god. Although she did cross the line, she still had a bottom line. While they were smiling bitterly, Thea finished reading all their knowledge. She was at a different level. No matter how ingenious the skills of mortals were, they were still mortals. She could understand 70% to 80% of it at first glance. She could understand everything with a second glance. Under the nervous gazes of the old monks, she stretched out her hand and sent out 9 light balls. I won't take your knowledge for nothing. Your souls have been strengthened by me. I also added some of my understanding and enlightenment of sealing techniques. The understanding of gods was far beyond the limits of the old monk's vision. They were a little excited. They did not know what the green lamp was, but they were itching to learn all kinds of incredible enlightenment techniques. It was a pity that they did not have a body, otherwise, they would go down the mountain and convert another 100 or 80 people. The 9 old monks sighed together. It was impossible to go down the mountain. This was the only target left. High Spenter, who was struggling to deal with the main connection, felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. He did not know that it was his subconscious reminding him of his tragic future. All of you, return to your positions. I will seal him. The 8 old monks hurriedly went to their positions. Only one was left silently looking at the skeleton wrapped in High Spenter's psionic energy. Thea patted the ground gently. Her divine power was not in the same system as that of Buddhism, but she could control it by force. An invisible grey breath entered the ground and spread through the walls. In a loud rumbling sound, 9 giant stone tablets broke out of the ground. Only the middle one was stepped down by High Spenter. Thea sneered and did not care. The stone tablets glowed with a layer of mysterious light against the fire in the room. Over the years, the surface of the tablets was seriously weathered. Every stone tablet was engraved with dense Sanskrit characters, and a sense of history hit her in the face. Originally, the sealing process needed hundreds of monks to chant sutras together. Now she did not have this condition. Where could she find hundreds of monks with supernatural power in modern society? She let the 9 monks chant the beginning as the guide for the whole ceremony. The rest of the process was ignored. After that, she would use her method. You monks only needed to watch from the side and shout "Lulu Lulu." Thea was on one side arranging the modified version of the Buddhist sealing formation. On the other side, High Spenter had a premonition that a disaster was coming. He wanted to rush out of the encirclement in a hurry. After that, he did not know whether to attack Thea or run first. His thoughts were in a mess and he could not make up his mind. Chapter 759. The idea was good, but it was hard to do in practice. Diana's defense was unparalleled. She only defended and did not attack, firmly guarding the passage. He tried 3 times but failed. Instead, his head was bruised by the shield. Hal, trap him. The rest of you, retreat, Thea shouted. Hal focused her emotions. The green lamp trapped Highspenter like an iron cage. The 9th stone tablet that had been stepped on also rose in response. Thea forced the 8 stone tablets to move. They emitted rays of golden light. Scriptures appeared on the mountain walls. These were carved by the believers with their blood and sweat. At first, they were as thin as silk. Then, they became trickles. Finally, the golden light gathered on the middle tablet. It instantly erupted with an irresistible suction force, about to suck Highspenter in. Superman finally had a use this time. You don't want to go in? I'll push you in. The 8 old monks began to chant sutras in unison, and Highspenter's resistance was visibly weakened. The old monk who had been standing beside Thea saw that Highspenter was about to enter the tablet. He leaped forward. The monk, the skeleton, and the alien were finally mixed together. They were sucked in by the stone tablet's golden light. Retracting the divine power, the 9 stone tablets slowly descended to the ground again, just like how they came out. They became part of the underground palace. Cool. The Flash touched the floor tiles for a long time. He could not figure out what the mechanism here was. The battle was not intense, but they knew that this was just an appetizer. The battle on Jupiter was the key. Let's search around. See if the 2 guiding robots from before are a threat. See if there are any other hidden dangers here. Batman gave the order casually. He then lit a torch and walked to the side of the passage. The remaining 6 looked at each other in silence. Hey, when did we choose him as our leader? Why didn't I know? Hal said a little angrily. Thea and the others had different expressions. Some shrugged, some smiled bitterly. However, it was a good idea to search separately. They quickly went their separate ways. The young lady did not think that there were any hidden dangers here. She pulled Diana to look at the words on the stone wall. Sanskrit. Diana's knowledge allowed her to enter the Louvre. She could recognize most of the words in the world. Even if there were a few she didn't know, she could fully decipher them with her divine power. That's right. Buddhism is very positive. It advises people to do good. It has some similarities with your guardian. All living beings have the wisdom and virtue of the Buddha. I don't know where the Buddha is now, but he has gone further than us and his realm is higher. Look at these words left behind. They should be helpful to you. In order to help Diana, Thea really went through a lot of trouble. Although the Valkyrie was persistent, she was actually a little inflexible. Her worldview was also influenced by her mother, Hippolyte's Greek version of "with great power comes great responsibility." She had to understand something positive and positive. In fact, the Christian God's love for the world was more suitable for Diana's values, but Thea always felt that it was strange. Love me is enough. What kind of people were they? Stand up and let me see. She would never allow her daughter-in-law to walk on the path of loving the world. Reading the old monk's memory gave her a lot of inspiration. Wisdom. Reality. These were all very good choices. At a higher level, one's appearance was born from one's heart, and the world was in one's heart. One could create paradise with a single thought, and there was a faint taste of rules. It could be said that it was very suitable for the current Diana as a reference. In order to maintain the faith, modern Buddhism added a lot of ideas of giving love to others and contributing to society. However, in ancient times, there were no such things in the theory in this underground palace. It was just some very pure cultivation experience. Not knowing what her lover was thinking, Diana read very carefully. Many of the Buddhist theories seemed very simple, but the more she thought about it, the more she found that it contained great wisdom. The 2 women discussed from time to time. Thea's real realm was much higher, and with the memories of many old monks as references, Thea's views on many theories were superior. Diana kept nodding as she listened, feeling that she had benefited a lot. Looking at her lover's eyes getting brighter and brighter, Thea knew that she had learned a lot. It was a pity that even though she spoke clearly and logically, she didn't even understand the surface of it. The Buddhist theory was too different from her original intention, so she could only slowly walk with Diana. Soon, two muffled sounds came from the passage. Superman and the Flash had each taken care of a robot. Diana looked at the wall regretfully. She was going to take a closer look next time. The seven of them left the underground palace. Thea first took everyone back to the Hall of Justice to discuss the next step of the plan. Back in the warm house, the Sea King finally breathed a sigh of relief when he saw the sunlight shining in through the floor-to-ceiling windows. He would never go to such a cold place again. However, in less than 2 minutes, he frowned again. Superman and Batman had a new dispute. Superman's intention was for a few heroes with space survival skills to fly over and solve the problem, while Batman's intention was for a few Earthlings to follow. His reason for insisting was that Jupiter was too big, and they did not know where the temple was. The more people there were, the faster the search. All right. Let's go together. The more people there are, the faster the search. It's been a busy day. In the end, Thea supported Batman. She didn't have any impression of the people from Dynamo. It was obvious that they weren't famous enemies. A few more Earthlings wouldn't be a problem. The administrative committee has a few alien spaceships. However, it's troublesome to register with the council. Let's use the Dynamo spaceship on the moon. Is there a problem with the control? The woman called Voodoo was captured by the administrative committee. She has Dynamo blood and can be controlled. I'll take care of these problems. Bring your equipment and wait for me on the moon. After teleporting back to the administrative committee, they easily met the female alien codenamed Voodoo. I recognize you. The president's daughter. Hey, superhero. Wearing equipment that suppressed superpowers, her body was hanging in the air with her arms and legs spread out. The true mixed-blood woman looked at Sia with a mocking smile. Very good. You know me. That's easy. However, I have a question. Do you know yourself? Do you know who you are? PH, the patriotic and human stuff again? I know the consequences. What's wrong with working for an alien? Don't try to kidnap me with morals. How would a rich girl like you know the suffering of the bottom rung? Thea quickly raised a hand to interrupt her. You misunderstood. I'm not that bored. I don't know how much you know about genetic engineering, but I can tell you with certainty that you're a clone. She had done many cloning experiments. Initially, it was all for Shazen. Now, she had no use for it. However, knowledge couldn't be forgotten. Thea could tell that Miss Voodoo was a clone just by looking at her report. Chapter 760. You weren't born naturally, and your name isn't Priscilla. Your previous memories, your childhood, everything is fake. They were all forcefully instilled in you by the Dino people. Hello. Are you listening to me? Miss Voodoo's gaze was completely blank. If she wasn't Priscilla, then who was she? Where was she? What was she doing? A bunch of philosophical questions surrounded her. Thea could only find a chair to sit down and wait. After a full 10 minutes, she recalled all the things that didn't seem right. Finally, she had an answer. Miss Voodoo's gaze slowly recovered. Does this Priscilla exist or not? She was a pitiful person. She was kidnapped by the Dino Star when she was 4 years old. The local police recorded her as a missing person. She only reappeared 5 years ago. She looked similar to you after you transformed. She had a lizard head and sharp claws. The only difference between the two of you was that she had wings and you didn't. It was determined that she had escaped on her own. She was captured by the FBI not long after she returned to Earth. Hearing that she was a clone of someone, Miss Voodoo was completely speechless. The meaning of her existence had disappeared. Her previous life was completely fake. This made her feel an invisible fear. After a long silence, she spoke again. Why are you telling me all this? What use do I have to you? Thea clapped lightly. You're very smart, even smarter than the original Priscilla. She actually wanted the FBI to help her return to normal. You're better than her in this aspect. Hehe, better than the original? I'm still a prisoner. She stretched her neck and looked around. What's the difference between you and the FBI here? We've captured quite a number of Dino people. They should be the group you were trying to contact previously. However, their spaceship requires a special bloodline to operate. This is why I'm looking for you. Help me operate the spaceship. After that, I can pardon you. You can go back and do striptease or do something else. Unexpectedly, Miss Voodoo didn't intend to go back and flirt with the New Orleans soldiers. She actually wanted to be an agent. Thea waved her hand. Aren't you afraid that I'll betray you? Miss Voodoo was put down. Her eyes flashed as she asked. Do you have this ability? Thea asked curiously. Voodoo was about to teach this beautiful hero a lesson and let her know that he was not someone to be trifled with, but he found that his body was completely stiff and he could not move at all. Thea said matter-of-factly, see? You can't even move in front of me. What's so great about reading minds? You can't threaten me at all, and I can even control your body. As she spoke, she directly controlled Miss Voodoo to do a few movements, and in the end, she even did a front flip. I follow the principle of a deal. You help me control the battleship, and I give you freedom. Isn't that appropriate? Miss Voodoo immediately expressed that her boss was wise. I'll follow you from now on. Before she could say anything, a green light flashed. When she regained consciousness, she was already in a high-tech spaceship on the dark side of the moon. Thea looked around. Batman and the others had not arrived yet, so she brought Miss Voodoo to the control panel. When they heard that the Justice League was going to drive this spaceship to Jupiter, Batman's friends could not remain calm. Even Tim Derrick, who was known for his calmness, was a little tempted. However, Thea did not agree. It was better to wait and see what Daddy Bat wanted to do. The people from the Justice League were not slow. Thea had just finished studying the control instructions when Green Lantern HL had already brought 3 people who could not fly to the moon. They had only heard of it before, but now that they saw a real alien spaceship docked so close to Earth, the heroes could not believe it. The spaceship started moving quickly. Unsurprisingly, the Bat team was driven back by him. It was said that he wanted to prevent accidents from happening to Gotham. In fact, everyone knew that he was afraid that something would happen to his team. Jupiter was the most massive and fastest rotating planet among the 8 planets in the solar system. Pluto was kicked out by astronomers. Its volume was 1,316 times that of Earth, and its diameter was 140,000 kilometers. The amount of work needed to find a temple on such a huge planet was not small. This time, the Justice League not only brought the Martian hunter, but also the reserve member, Ray Palmer. Seeing that they were all nervous, the big goofball could only greet Thea without saying much. They needed to set off from the moon, pass through Mars, and the next stop was Jupiter. Seeing that the cabin was full of clones that looked exactly like her, Miss Voodoo was a little numb at this time. She mechanically set the position of Jupiter according to the coordinates and stood in the distance. Batman, the Atom, and the Flash got together and discussed the search for the temple according to the records in the spaceship. The 3 guys also studied an algorithm seriously. Thea and Diana hid in a corner and continued to study the relationship between Buddhism and the Guardian. 4 hours later, a bunch of superheroes landed on the surface of Jupiter. Jupiter was farther from the sun, and the environment was worse. The temperature difference between day and night was huge. The lowest temperature was -168 degrees, which was much colder than the highest peak. Fortunately, they had learned their lesson. They turned on the temperature adjustment technology and used their superpowers. Student Salted Fish Poseidon was tightly wrapped. He was wearing a coat sewn with the skin of a special sea beast. At this time, he missed his warm sea water very much. Wow, so cool. A satellite the size of the moon flew past in low Earth orbit, and the light on the ground was instantly blocked. In 2 minutes, the originally blurred ground was completely dark. The satellite came and went quickly, and in less than 3 minutes, it returned to normal. The Flash and the Atom couldn't help but exclaim loudly. Unfortunately, when the 3rd satellite flew over their heads, their excitement completely disappeared. The first time they saw it, the second time they saw it, the second time they saw it, and the 3rd time they saw it, they felt annoyed. There were 69 known satellites in Jupiter's orbit. Jupiter's mass was large and its rotation speed was fast, causing the satellites to fly with a whoosh. The Earth's rotation was about once every 24 hours, while Jupiter's rotation was once every 9 hours and 50 minutes. There was only one moon in Earth's orbit, but there were 69 of them here. The barren land, the sudden hurricanes, the ultra-low temperature, and the occasional debris from the collisions between the satellites made the heroes, who had never been to an alien planet, feel a little uncomfortable. The rest of them were also confused. This place was too big. Fortunately, they had calculated the approximate location with their advanced technology. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to find it. Our landing is still a little off. There are signs of life 20 kilometers away from us. The humanoid probe Martian Hunter soon brought good news. Chapter 761. Hearing that it wasn't far, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. They didn't want to stay in this lousy place for another minute. Green Lantern Hal Jordan volunteered to investigate, and then flew over. 3 minutes later, they saw the roar of fire and the sound of an explosion not far away. There was no doubt that Green Lantern had been exposed. This idiot. Batman cursed in a low voice, but he had to fight. Most of the heroes of justice could fly, and the only ones who couldn't were the Flash, Sea King, and Batman. The Flash was undoubtedly fast. He had added a heating device to his combat suit, so the environment here didn't affect him much. Sea King had the physique of an animal, and he wasn't slow when he ran and jumped. Our Batman couldn't do the same. There were no trees or buildings here, and he couldn't use his hook gun or glider at all. His human speed was nothing. In the sky, Sia saw that he was chasing after them with all his might, and the gap between them was getting wider and wider. Her shoulders trembled as she covered her mouth and snickered. Diana elbowed her, and she hurriedly cast advanced haste on Batman, so that he wouldn't fall behind. Before they finished running 20 kilometers, they saw Hal flying in front with a bunch of enemies chasing behind him. How King melodramatic. That was what everyone thought at the same time. They were supposed to sneak in and observe, then come up with a plan before starting the battle, but now it had become a tough battle. There are 2 big guys, and there are about 500 enemies left, Hal shouted as he ran. Is this what you call investigation? The heroes were speechless as they watched the dust fly behind him and the enemies shouting to kill. The Green Lantern Corps tactical concept was very advanced. Attack. Superman took the lead and charged out. Diana followed closely behind. Sia took a look and also chased after her. There were a bunch of enemies on the ground, and it was just these guys. They're different from the enemies we encountered before, Diana said curiously. The first ones they encountered were all translucent lizard men. Later on, the Highspenters became blue skulls. Now, these fellows on the ground were all muscular and powerful. Their skin was as rough as sandpaper, and their large heads were filled with crisscrossing sharp teeth. Their bodies were wrapped in something like animal skin, and they wielded crude cold weapons. Other than the tentacles on their chin, it could be said that they were a completely different species from the Dino people. It was unknown if they had the ability to adapt to the environment and change their genes, or if it was some kind of mutation. The heroes did not want to know. Quick, these 2 big guys are very powerful. Hal saw them and quickly called for backup. Thea didn't know if the 2 big guys behind her were powerful or not, but they definitely looked impressive. With a height of 200 meters and a body made entirely out of obsidian, 2 gigantic stone golems were chasing after Greenlight Hal. They had shields in their left hands and swords in their right hands. Wearing helmets and capes, they looked like ancient Spartan warriors that had been magnified hundreds of times. Hal's materialization couldn't hurt them at all. Instead, they were beaten up by the stone men. Superman saw that he was in danger and was ready to help. Clark, leave it to us. Thea could tell that these 2 stone golems were extraordinary. They were definitely magical creations. Were they left behind by an ancient wizard? Fearing that they would be broken by Superman's chaotic punches, he signaled Diana to take one each. Superman didn't care and flew into the battle below. Stop right there. Thea waved her hand lightly at one of the stone golems. 2 gigantic hands made out of magic reached out from the ground and tried to grab the stone golem's legs. At the same time, a huge vine spell was cast. The green vines started to climb up the stone golem's legs rapidly. The stone golem swung its sword to cut the vines and broke the gigantic hands, as if it had done something insignificant. It continued to move forward. As expected of an ancient wizard. Looks like normal methods won't work. Thea was a little depressed. She gathered a torrent of lightning in her hands and threw it at the stone golem from afar. The stone golem was still expressionless and raised its shield to disperse the lightning. Magic shield. The more Thea looked at the two stone golems, the more she liked them. If she took them to a magic school, she would see two giant stone golems on the left and right. It would be so cool. Not to mention, she was also very interested in the stone golem's activation magic. The fact that it could still function normally after so many years meant that the design back then must have been very ingenious. Previously, she had captured two iron golems from the Cold Flame Vatican, but their activation magic was nothing but trash. The two iron golems in front of her were obviously high-quality goods. On the other hand, Diana realized that her lover wanted to take down the two stone golems without losing any damage. She began to give it her all. The Valkyrie's fighting spirit rose rapidly. Ever since she became a god, she had never met an opponent who was on par with her. Even with her courage, she was afraid of Darkseid even before the battle. The stone golem in front of her gave her a chance to vent her anger. Her fists rained down like a storm, but the stone golem did not back down. In the blink of an eye, she had attacked more than 100 times. Cooperate with me. Sia once again trapped a stone golem with a spell. Diana shook off her opponent and flew to her side, striking the stone golem's knee with a lightning spear. A large amount of lightning struck, causing a slight delay in the magic circulation in the stone golem's body. Then, the Valkyrie threw out the true word lasso with a swish, binding the stone golem tightly. Thea landed on the stone golem's head, which was as big as a house. She slapped the stone golem's head and poured her spiritual power into it, trying to find the control center of the stone golem. It was not difficult. In front of her profound magic knowledge, the stone golem's structure was completely revealed. There were no more secrets. Ingenious. It was really ingenious. In the eyes of modern magic, the control system of the stone golem was not that complicated. It was just that Lucian had ingeniously used a lot of knowledge and skillfully combined them. In Sia's opinion, the power source of the stone golem was somewhat similar to solar power. Stop it. After finding the control center and observing it for a while, she figured out the structure. After a burst of magic power, the stone golem stopped where it was with its shield raised. The two women did the same thing and took down another stone man. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief. The ground battle could only be described as a stalemate. Theoretically speaking, superheroes had an advantage. Although there were more than 500 enemies, they did not have any superpowers. They were purely relying on their physical strength and their cold weapons. They did not cooperate with each other and could only roar like beasts. To deal with such a motley crowd, people like Superman and the Martian Manhunter could defeat them without suffering any damage. They would not be afraid even if there were several times more of them. The problem was that they did not kill. She controlled her strength and knocked the enemy down with a punch. The enemy rubbed their head and stood up after half a minute. She kicked the enemy away, and the enemy ran back after a while. It was as if no matter how hard he tried, he could not defeat the enemy. No matter how hard he tried, there was no end to it. Chapter 762. Thea had the urge to cover her face. This was the essential difference between her and this group of heroes. She wanted to ask, if the bad guys on Earth could not be killed, then were the aliens human? Could the aliens not be killed? Looking at Batman being besieged by a group of people, his answer was probably still not to kill them. Respectable determination, laughable reserve. Thea could only go down with Diana to help. She put away her holy sword and took out her soft whip. She did not use any skills like Silverfire. The tip of the whip was like a snake as it constantly coiled around the enemy's neck. On the other side, Diana also put away the power of lightning on her spear and used it like a stick. She fought with the enemies one by one. The sky was bright and dark, and a hurricane swept across the ground from time to time. It was a terrible battle. In the end, the heroes relied on their powerful abilities to wear down more than 500 aliens. It was not that they did not want to continue fighting, but that they had no strength. "Speak, who are you people?" Diana used her lasso of truth to trap the strongest alien and asked. The alien spat out blood and said a word with difficulty. It seemed to be his name. Diana asked a few more questions. The alien's language was almost degraded. He could only express some words like roaring and anger. "They've completely degraded," Ray Palmer said somewhat seriously. Thea agreed. These enemies were completely unlike their kind. They were savage and bloodthirsty. It was a joke to tell them about the genetic modification of spaceships. However, many of their weapons were made of aerospace materials. They only bent special steel to make spears and sharp swords. It was ironic. Diana asked quickly. Her face was a little pale. "There is no food on Jupiter. For 50 years, they have survived by eating their own kind, so, the serious question was whether it was necessary to keep such a hostile race alive." Diana meant to kill them on the spot. Thea naturally agreed. They were no longer intelligent beings if they ate their own kind. "What if we send them all to a distant planet?" Batman said. "Even if we can send them there, have you considered whether the bacteria in their bodies will cause a disaster on the new planet and damage the local ecological balance?" Thea immediately retorted. Batman lowered his head and didn't say anything. He seemed to have come to a decision and walked forward with his head lowered. Thea looked at Superman, and Superman hurriedly avoided her gaze. She looked at everyone in turn, and no one dared to look at her. What was the meaning of this? "Are you afraid of dirtying your hands? Are you waiting for me to cut you?" With a single soul extraction, 500 people would die instantly. It was convenient, fast, safe, and painless. The only downside was that it would make her look evil. The young miss was still very concerned about her external image. Sigh. She shook her head and sighed. "None of you want to kill them, and I can't kill so many of them. Let them go. What if they continue to devour their own kind?" The Flash wanted to be tactful, but it didn't work. No one could answer this question. The heroes were bound by all kinds of morals. These enemies could not be killed or let go. Diana whispered a few words to Thea. "Are you sure you can do this?" Thea asked. Diana nodded. As she spoke, she unfolded the lasso of truth and tied up more than 500 people in an instant. Thea drew a complicated magic circle in the void. A huge amount of magic power was mobilized. Her hands emitted a bright light. With a crisp snap, she threw the magic circle on the captives' heads. The two goddesses activated their divine power at the same time. The temptation of Thea's wealth broke the captives' mental defenses. Referring to the brainwashing model of the green lamp, and mixing in many theories that they saw from the old monk on the highest peak, they created a group version of the brainwashing magic circle. At the same time, Diana's lasso of truth allowed them to see their original hearts that had been lost for a long time. It was difficult to maintain one's original heart. Normal people might not be able to see their original heart in their whole life, let alone this group of sinners who were deeply trapped in the mire. At this time, their persistence in their divine position played a role. The ferocious gazes gradually receded. Various memories of the past surfaced in their minds. Many people finally remembered their identities. The organs that had long mutated let out a low sob. Their turbid eyes regained some of the vigor of intelligent creatures. Thea shook her head slightly. These people woke up too late and sank too deep. Of course, she was not a compassionate person. She just felt that there were too few people and the brainwashing effect was not strong enough. Such a subtle change did not give Diana much experience before it ended in a hurry. If they found tens or hundreds of millions of sinners to create a super-large magic circle, Diana might be able to obtain a new divine position. The people of the Alliance did not know what the young miss was thinking. They all applauded their methods. A big problem was finally solved. Leaving behind a group of sinners who were repenting, they walked towards the way the aliens came. Looking at the bloodstains and many utensils in the alien camp, and the dried meat, the heroes were speechless. A group of intelligent creatures had degenerated to such an extent in just 50 years. To a certain extent, civilization was really fragile. Is this the place? They stopped at the entrance of a cave that was 2 people wide and 3 meters tall. The cave was filled with orchids. The weapons that Spencer had mentioned should be stored here. There were obvious large scratches at the entrance. There were many broken limbs. As for the white bones, they were piled up like a mountain. The 2 stone golems were standing here. I wanted to rush into the cave directly, but I was slashed down with a sword. Greenlight HL said with lingering fear. Thea imagined that scene. It was really exciting. Hal poked his head in to take a look. He thought that the stone golems were just decorations. He did not expect them to be powered by solar energy and had their own warning system. If not for his quick reaction, he would have been chopped up. The stone golems were controlled and the people of Dynamor outside were all brainwashed. This place was already open to the Justice League. The group entered in a single file. The cave was not big, but the interior was cut neatly. This must have been opened up by the first batch of Dynamor people who came to Jupiter. Greenlight HAL saw many lizard statues placed around. He raised his lamp ring nervously. Those are all stone statues. There's no danger here. Thea was speechless. This guy was a disgrace to the 7 Lantern Corps. He had pulled down the average of the Lantern Corps. Is this the world-destroying weapon that guy was talking about? The few of them walked to the end and saw a lizard statue in the center. It was holding a blue energy bar with both hands. The energy bar was flashing with a dazzling light. It was floating there quietly, as if it was waiting for some mission. Thea nodded. This energy bar contained a large amount of energy. If placed on those technologically advanced planets, it could be used as the main energy source for some super interstellar cannon. It was indeed an unparalleled super weapon. The few of them looked around. At least nothing unexpected happened. This trip to Jupiter had come to a perfect end. Chapter 763. There were no traps or traps. The energy bar was in their hands. The old problem popped up again. How should they deal with it? This was obviously a technological energy source. The 2 technological heroes, Batman and Atom Man, fell silent. They really wanted it, but were afraid that they would not be able to keep it safe. If news of it leaked out and some villain stole it, it would be an earth-shattering event. Especially Batman, he immediately thought of the clown. If the clown knew that he had a weapon that could blow Earth to smithereens, it would be a disaster. Forget it, I'll bring it back. Thea reached out and took the energy bar that was floating in the air. The few of them did not object. After all, the battle was over and the hidden danger had been eliminated. There were many things that needed to be dealt with. The disposal of the alien spaceship, the clones that looked exactly the same, the 500 captives who were ready to turn over a new leaf, and the energy bar that could blow Earth to smithereens. Each and every one of these matters was extremely troublesome. Only Thea, who had close ties with various government departments, could handle them. They returned to Earth in the spaceship. The spoils of war were all sent to the administrative committee. The heroes sang their songs and went home, leaving Thea to deal with all the follow-up matters. Diana wanted to run away at first, but under the stern gaze of Thea, she shrunk her neck and stayed to help. Thea felt that the Dynamorians were fated to be Buddhists. According to ancient sayings, they were rather intelligent. Even Spencer had some magical powers. If one ignored his honor, he would have been an eminent monk 1,000 years ago. She went to the highest peak for a stroll. The entire cave was completely sealed by her 2 seals. The 500 captives who had turned over a new leaf were easily dealt with. 200 of them were sent to various construction sites to make full use of their remaining power. The remaining 300 were allocated to Damien Dark. This former Green Arrow Season 4 boss was now a captive of the main female team. He was very talented. Thea took a large piece of land in Nevada. The 300 musclemen were all given to him to plant corn. The 20 or so authentic Dimo natives on the spaceship had also been brainwashed by the 2 goddesses. Much of their knowledge was useful to humans, and they were categorized into different categories and taken away by a few science and technology departments. As for the clones that looked exactly like Miss Voodoo, that was a headache. It was unrealistic to humanely destroy them, and it was also impossible to arrange them into human society or government organizations. There were more than 100 women who looked exactly the same. Even a blind person would know that they were clones. Currently, the issue of cloning humans was still being debated on a moral level, and it was not suitable to be pushed out. Thea waved her pen and decided to raise them first. Those who survived would all undergo special agent training. As for the object of loyalty, it was naturally the Quinn family. The spaceship was handed over to the Scientific Research Center, represented by the Firestorm duo. Thea was determined to obtain the miraculous stealth technology. She had also brought the 2 stone golems to the magic school so that the new students could admire their seniors when they had nothing better to do. "What are you going to do with this?" Diana pointed at the energy bar on the table. Thea held her chin and pondered. She couldn't do it on Earth because it was too dangerous. What about outer space? Outer space was actually not safe, and she didn't want to give it to the Heavenly Father. What should she do? Hey! She suddenly thought of a good place, Old Shazen's Stone of Eternity. With the energy bar in her left hand and Diana in her right hand, she brought the Valkyrie to the Stone of Eternity. Old Shazen was locked up by her to absorb his divine power, and the originally deserted building became even more desolate. The Stone of Eternity was still the same as when she left last time, and there were traces of various magic battles on the ground. What do you think? This place is not bad, right? Diana carefully experienced the characteristics of the Stone of Eternity. Even with her calmness, she was dumbfounded. There is a problem with the space and time here, and there is also a strange feeling that I can't describe. Yes, this is the center of the multiverse. I once wanted to move it to our universe, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move it at all. That was when I discovered the hidden characteristics of this place. The center had nothing to do with the present. She found a box to hide the energy bar, looked around briefly, and then returned to Earth. A crisis caused by the entertainment activities of the Female Righteous Alliance was stopped prematurely. The ordinary people were still living their ordinary lives, and were not affected at all. Writing reports, making records, numbering a few pieces of evidence and sealing them up. After going through the entire process, the secrets of the DI demons were locked up in the secret files of the administrative committee. Once the door was locked, it was as if it had never existed. Thea was not interested in Priscilla's original body, but Miss Voodoo deserved her attention. It was a remarkable talent that the guy could integrate striptease moves into battle. It was very suitable for a bard. After basic training as a special agent, she was sent to the current magic school under Master Constantine to learn more advanced theories. In the blink of an eye, it was May. At the end of March, the International Justice League was officially established. The Golden Vanguard was the leader, and the 3 female generals, Female Fox, Fire, and Ice, joined at the same time. Following closely behind was the Russian superhero, Red Rocket, and the Iron Mask general from an indescribable country. What was worth noting was that the International Justice League also had a Green Lantern Gardner. He was also from Earth, and was the second choice for Arbin Sue's ring, other than Hal Jordan. Due to the Battle of Dark Seed, 4 Green Lanterns who participated in the battle died. 3 of the rings flew away, and 1 was left on Earth. Green Lantern Gardner was destined to receive a Green Lantern ring, and become the new Green Lantern. The 2 goddesses, Thea and Diana, did not know whether to laugh or cry. Batman also shamelessly joined the International Justice League. Master Bruce used the attitude of "I'm leading you, you can't reject me" to infiltrate the International Justice League. The International Justice League looked glamorous on the surface, but in reality, there were many internal problems that made one's hair stand on end. There were all kinds of bureaucratic commands, and behind the 7 members were more than 20 leaders. Moreover, their reputation was far from the International Justice League's. Despite the media's promotion, they still could not convince the ordinary people. Female Fox, Fire, and Ice had complained to Thea before. If they had known that the internal structure was so complicated, they would not have gotten involved in this mess. The pressure from the people behind the scenes, coupled with the lack of motivation of the members, made the Golden Vanguard very passive. Compared to the dismal debut of the International Justice League, there was another incident that was worth recording in the history books. At the beginning of April, the huge Ibn Trade Association entered the solar system. The government and the military immediately released a statement, saying that this was a peaceful trade group. The people were not stupid. They immediately asked, "How did you know?" At first, they said that it was a secret. "Your ranks are not high enough." After that, you spread a bunch of fake and true news, from Apollo's landing on the moon to the recent construction of the Mars base. In short, you gave the public the impression that the higher-ups were playing a big game of chess and that everything was under their control. Chapter 764. The heroes of the Righteous Alliance ran back and forth to the edge of the solar system and confirmed that Ibn Trade was a commercial alliance. It was safe and harmless. The other party came with peace. The people began to boil. Earth was finally entering the era of the universe. 15 huge battleships carrying a large number of goods and a commercial celestial body transformed from an asteroid slowly entered the solar system. Every day, the people discussed how far the other party was from Earth. Yesterday, they were on Saturn. Today, they should be on Jupiter. What did the aliens look like? Were they as stupid as in the movies? Or did they look like us? Did they wear clothes? What did they eat? All kinds of questions popped up. The government's subsequent actions could be regarded as competent. They responded appropriately and commanded calmly. Moira's support rate skyrocketed. Most people did not know that this was all an act. In the eyes of outsiders, the government's response was so perfect that it could be written in textbooks. Many media reporters rushed to Mars and witnessed Moira shaking hands with the leader of the commercial alliance on behalf of Earth. It was worth mentioning that this alien leader looked very much like a gorilla on Earth. Of course, everyone knew that it was impossible. The other party was very kind and knew how to say a lot of witty things. Gorillas on Earth did not have such IQ. Moira knew that this gorilla was her daughter's subordinate. She was not afraid. In front of the camera, she showed the demeanor of a big human country. She was dignified and polite. Jared also knew that this woman was his boss's mother. He was here to act. He put himself in a very low position. His gentle and humble performance won the favor of many media. Superman, who used a reporter's identity to sneak into the scene, felt that this gorilla-like alien was very pleasing to the eye. There was actually such a peaceful alien in this era. The universe was really big and full of strange things. Clark, who had been feeling very tired, eating, sleeping, and fighting aliens every day, as if the universe was full of bad people, reignited his hope. There were still good people in this universe. The Righteous Alliance did not find any problems. Thea knew far more about the light ring than Hal Jordan. The result of the light ring's scan showed that Jared was a real alien. The group of people who did experiments with the US military and reverse lightning had seen Jared before. However, the face of a gorilla was almost the same in the eyes of people. Jared had changed from a small gorilla to a gorilla. Even if he kept his original size, the Americans would not be able to recognize him. Jared landed on Earth with a small landing ship and gave a keynote speech on the peace of the universe at the United Nations headquarters. This was in line with the spirit of the current theme. The representatives of the two sides quickly negotiated a bunch of trade agreements. The IBEN Trade Association established 3 trading points on Earth, one in Asia, one in America, and one in Europe. Large amounts of extraterrestrial resources, technological equipment, and weapons had entered the human race's field of vision, and they only traded various minerals, steel, and fuel. In an ancient manor located in the embrace of trees, today's tranquil time was broken by the continuous sound of brakes. Many small animals among the trees did not know what was happening in this area today. They hid in their own tree holes and shivered as they watched the humans coming in and out. "Big brother, look at my holographic watch, it's so cool. It's completely controlled by brainwaves. I dare say that Earth's technology won't reach this level in 20 years. A young man was showing off his new watch to the people around him. This kind of thing happened more than once. Many people in the manor were talking to each other. Large amounts of extraterrestrial technology had entered their field of vision, and the first to benefit were naturally the wealthy. You're still buying yachts? How lame. I'm already using the magnetic airship. What? You said that this dress was personally tailored by an international master. My dress can make people fly. Can you do it? Young people who loved to show off gathered together and showed off the new items they had obtained, enjoying the admiring gazes of others. This caused them to unknowingly become intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. The younger generation gathered together and chatted. Those who were popular were talking loudly, and those who did not have much knowledge were clapping and cheering. In contrast, the older generation closed their doors and discussed the future. We received news from IBEN Trade that they are preparing to sell 10 space battleships from a level 5 civilization. What do you think? The white-haired patriarch of the family asked a few elders of the branch. Families that had lasted for hundreds of years would always have a lot of nonsense to deal with. In order to avoid meeting each other with submachine guns and drinking water, they lived in different places. When there was a big matter, they would gather together and pretend that they did not know each other. This was the only way. However, the arrival of IBEN Trade had broken many traditions. It was very necessary for them to gather under the same banner and discuss the future together. The family needs to move forward. If we don't, we will die. I feel that we should wait and see. The current situation is not clear. Wait and see. Have you seen the star map provided by IBEN Trade? There are only a few planets near the solar system that are worth attacking. Let's wait and see. Have you thought about the other families? The group of elders had not finished speaking and were about to quarrel. The old patriarch, who was leading the group, sat steadily and did not move. He waited until they finished quarreling before slowly saying, "We may be able to wait, but our descendants cannot wait." The family's policy of controlling the world behind the scenes does not satisfy them. They want cheers, applause, and worship from the people. However, the current system cannot give them these things. The old patriarch's words caused the few elders to fall silent. Their branches all had this problem. The elders considered more and were overcautious when doing things. The young people were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. It was very troublesome for them to sit on a large amount of wealth but not know about it. It was not difficult for the young people to choose whether to continue being a wealthy person on Earth or go to an alien planet to become a tyrant. They could forcefully suppress one or two of them, but if the entire younger generation stood together to oppose, they would have to compromise. After all, they could not kill all the heirs. The DuPont family is one step ahead. I heard that they are mobilizing a large amount of resources. They might even be able to take down a battleship before the military. You must know that our Earth is only a third-class planet according to the universe's standards, but that battleship is a fifth-class one. The old patriarch sighed. A space battleship was too good, so good that he could not sleep. We don't have that many resources. Can we use currency to exchange for some with other families? The old men had wolf-like personalities. When they saw something good, they did not want to let it go. If others had it, they wanted it too. The Quinn family has always been a steel company. Previously, steel was their main business during Robert's time. After that young lady came to power, she wantonly bought many energy companies. The mother and daughter pair have a large amount of resources in their hands. What are their opinions? An old man with triangular eyes asked. Chapter 765. The old patriarch sneered when he heard Quinn's name. President Quinn wants to finish her term and leave behind a glorious name. HMPH, a woman blinded by fame. As for her daughter, she is a superhero. Of course, she will take it as her duty to protect the people of Earth. What a ridiculous idea. Just let them watch over Earth. Haha. The remaining people also laughed with different characteristics. In their opinion, they had seen through everything. The actions of Quinn and her daughter were simply ridiculous. It was unwise to let go of the huge benefits and be tied down by fame. The triangular-eyed old man suggested that there was no need to buy it. In the dark night, They could just take people and snatch it. A group of people despised this idiot who spoke without thinking. Who was that? That was an alien. Their technology was hundreds of years ahead of Earth. Even if they managed to snatch it, no one would know how to drive it. A giant battleship tens of thousands of meters long was not a bicycle in front of the door. With a huge amount of materials in exchange, the other party promised to teach, provide all the learning materials, and provide food and accommodation until they learned it. If they wanted to snatch one, who would teach them? The families quickly reached an agreement. They wanted what other families had. There was nothing to say. Buy it. Thea certainly knew what they were thinking. All of this was the result of her secretly pushing. She knew the young people's thoughts too well. Using their psychology, a strong barrier would always be broken from the inside. When the arrow was on the bow, they would have no choice but to retreat. They spent a huge amount of money to buy the space battleship. They couldn't open a theme park at home or take young models to have sex in it, right? Weren't they greedy? I'll give you a big pie. Let them take the space battleship with their family's materials and children to explore the outer space. This was her plan. Did they really think that all the aliens in the universe were as polite as Jared? We were lying to you, all right? When Jared was angry, even he was afraid of himself. If these wolves won, they could share the pressure of Earth. If they lost, then so be it. It had nothing to do with Thea. Things were not unexpected. Several families took out their 100 years of savings to exchange for space battleships. Thea also helped by controlling a lot of media to speak wantonly, comparing the interstellar era to the great voyage of the past. She encouraged the ordinary people to resist the rich people's illegal actions of taking the lead. The more ordinary people said so, the more the hidden families were motivated. The more they said it was impossible, the more they did it. In the end, they boasted of being the Magellan da Gama. Under Thea's secret command, the major families bought 6 out of the 10 warships, while the major countries in the world only bought 4. With such a huge amount of wealth exposed, their seclusion policy could no longer continue, and they could only return to the spotlight. Every day, they had to deal with all kinds of verbal and written criticism. Finally, a month later, the DuPont family led a huge escort team and advanced weapons to attack a planet not far from the solar system. The civilization there had just entered an agricultural society. Faced with the advanced weapons of the Earthlings, they had no power to fight back and were beaten to a pulp. The news of the first victory was secretly sent back to Earth, and the big families were very encouraged. Under the instigation of many young heirs, several great clans set off for the starry skies one after another. Those old bastards are finally gone. Thea sat in her office chair with her legs crossed. Driven by greed, the big families abandoned Earth like it was a pair of worn-out shoes, leaving only a small number of people to watch over their homes. They majestically charged into space, and one of the families even shouted that their target was the Sea of Stars before they left. In order to strengthen their confidence, Thea first revealed a few planets that were both strong and weak, but they were all within an acceptable range. The strong ones were in the era of gunpowder weapons, and the weak ones were in the era of cold weapons. With the elites of the big families and all kinds of mecha and extraterrestrial weapons, it was no problem for them to flatten those planets. As for what happened after that, Thea could only maintain a limited amount of attention. To her, Earth was the most important. There was no reason, no logic, this was the center of the universe. For the same trade, if the divine power provided to her on another planet was 1, it would be 10 on Earth. Those families thought that Earth's environment was terrible and polluted, but they would never have thought that this place was important to Thea, Diana, and even Darkseid to the multiverse. This was caused by the difference in altitude. She did not use violent means to get them to leave voluntarily. Even the stranger ghost, who spoke for God, could not say anything. What she did was in accordance with the rules, be it official or unspoken. Of course, they did not get a total of 6 fifth-level spaceships for free. They had to shed tears and sell everything they had to buy them. Real estate, stocks, energy sources, and all kinds of resources that the big families had monopolized for hundreds of years were all in Thea's hands. She only paid a few spaceships, and these spaceships did not belong to her in the first place. They were snatched by the Yellow Lantern Corps and Death Knell. "Tell me, how much did we get this time?" she asked the secretary. The secretary's tone was very excited as she reported to her with a thick stack of documents. Quinn Group's shares were recovered by 17%, Wayne Group's shares increased by 19%, Rhodes Technology 26%. In addition to the above-mentioned companies, you have added 19 pharmaceutical factories, 14 aircraft manufacturing companies, 9 shipping companies, and 13 media companies under your name. Krupp Company, Springfield Munitions Factory, Beretta Company. You hold a lot of shares in all of them. You have more than half of the shares in 12 of them. The rest of the properties, islands, private castles, oil fields, and real estate around the world are still being calculated. And we paid for all the steel, oil, and rare metals in Quinn Group's inventory. Speaking of this, the secretary laughed softly. She was also a member of the Green Lamp Gang. She had cut off her connection with Luther. Recently, her relationship with Poison Ivy had improved by leaps and bounds. Of course, she knew that Sia had gained something from her left hand to her right hand without any loss to herself. Instead, she tricked a group of greedy fools into risking their lives in the universe. There were too many dangers in the universe, and these people would be finished in a few years. All their wealth had changed hands, and even if they came back, they would be poor. If she told her real thoughts, Thea would laugh at her. Come back. What a joke. In 2 years, it would be the darkest night. It would be a catastrophe for the entire universe, and these people's chances of survival were slim. Sigh, it seems like a lot of money, but it's just a number. Of course, Thea would not sleep with a pile of money. She wanted to add this part back into the wealth cycle and redistribute the wealth of society. The top of the pyramid had been completely emptied. Using the government as a cover, she slowly returned the wealth accumulated by these families for hundreds of years to the people. This was what she needed to do in the future. It was impossible to completely eliminate poverty, but she could make most people live better and richer. In the next few days, she began to work with Moira. The government introduced a lot of policies to encourage and support the manufacturing industry. Many low-tech alien products were copied by human beings. The rich used the original alien products, and the poor ordinary people used the counterfeit products. Thea would not say that this was a trick she learned from the counterfeit mobile phones in the indescribable country. The heavy manufacturing industry directly increased the employment rate. Many people suddenly found that their income had increased a lot. The idle people were pulled to work in the factories. They did not need a degree. As long as they had brains, they could support themselves and buy houses and cars. Many ordinary people did not know what had happened. They only knew that after the aliens came, life on Earth suddenly became better. Chapter 766. The big shots were playing all kinds of games, and the small ones also needed to survive. Jenny was a young girl from Arkansas. She was young and beautiful, and she thought that she was very capable. She wanted applause and cheers, and she ignored the opposition of her family. With an indomitable spirit, she rushed into the Vanity Fair of Hollywood. Unfortunately, an ideal was still an ideal, and reality made her bleed. Not to mention becoming a big star in Hollywood, she couldn't even touch the door of Hollywood. She could only work as a hostess in the nightclub. In the early hours of the morning, Miss Jenny walked back alone with heavy makeup, wearing a cheap dress and high heels in her hand. "Gina, you stupid pig. Go and work as a worker. When I become a big star, you will regret it." Miss Jenny drank a lot tonight, but she still kept a little sober. She scolded her roommate as she walked. As a member of the bottom rung of the Hollywood pyramid, there were countless people like Miss Jenny. Her current roommate was originally in the same situation as her. Although they didn't have a deep friendship, the two of them still had some common topics to talk about. But everything changed last month. Gina gave up her dream of Hollywood, washed off her heavy makeup, took off her earrings, and went to work in a small factory. She was as tired as a donkey every day, but her income was 10 times more than Miss Jenny's. This made her both envious and jealous. When the other party invited her to work together, she flatly refused. "Are you kidding? I came to Hollywood to be a big star. Do you think I have nothing better to do than to work in a factory? I might as well go back to Arkansas to farm. As an ordinary person, she didn't know why the manufacturing industry suddenly burst out with such a huge amount of energy. Not to mention her, even those promising young people who often came to the nightclub to have fun couldn't figure out the relationship behind it. Whenever she saw customers fiddling with alien technology products, she could only look on enviously. She didn't know anything about the big shots. She only knew that she couldn't afford those technological products with her meager income. Miss Jenny, who did not have any academic qualifications and was only focused on getting rich and famous, was even less clear about the complicated logical relationships here. She only knew that due to the huge demand of the manufacturing industry, there was a rare round of labor shortage. Even the nightclub she worked at had a few of her sisters taken away. As the only remaining employee, her workload had increased tremendously. In the past, he could still throw flirtatious glances at people who were suspected to be Hollywood actors and leave a note. Now, he was as busy as a spinning top and had no time for that. Why is this F***king country so busy all of a sudden? Ouch. Everyone was busy, so naturally, fewer people came to play. Her daily income, which accounted for a large portion of her daily income, plummeted. She angrily kicked a rock, only to realize that she wasn't wearing shoes the moment her foot touched the rock. The result was self-evident. She could only sit on the ground and rest while hugging her legs. Everyone was exhausted. Most people chose to go home and sleep after a tiring day. Naturally, no one came out to rob them. Compared to a month ago when single women could not walk at night, the security on the streets was unprecedentedly good. Miss Jenny, who had great ambition but little talent, sat on the ground, hugging her feet. She wanted to curse, but she did not know who to curse. While she was in a trance, she noticed that a room was flashing with a faint light, and she could faintly hear someone calling her. He passed by this place every day. Had he ever seen this house before? After drinking a lot of wine, Miss Jenny felt dizzy. After thinking for a long time, she felt like she had seen him before, but she also felt like she had never seen him before. Shall we go in and take a look? Please don't go in. What if there are ghosts inside? All kinds of thoughts appeared in her mind. Miss Jenny subconsciously felt that something was wrong, but there seemed to be a voice tempting her to go in and take a look. Anyway, she had nothing. If she found a treasure, wouldn't she be rich? That's right. I don't have anything with me. There's no need to worry. Jenny did not know if this idea came from her or if it was forced on her by the outside world. She did not hesitate and pushed the door open and walked in. The interior was very well furnished. It was like a rich man's house. She had never seen a real rich man's house before, so she could only refer to the things she saw on TV and the internet. The floor was covered with a gorgeous carpet, and there were expensive oil paintings hanging around. Walking through the magnificent corridor, Miss Jenny looked around as she walked. Her curiosity was like a cat, tightly clenching her chest. She did not dare to breathe too hard, afraid that she would break something if she exhaled too hard. "Hello, is anyone here?" she said softly, her voice so soft that she could not hear it clearly. Just when she thought that no one would respond to her, a thin layer of fog rose from the stage not far away. The light smoke surrounded the body, and the fog dispersed like a light cloud. A languid woman appeared from within. "Customer, is there anything you need?" There was a faint layer of grey on the woman's skin, but it was easily ignored. Her voice was too seductive. Even though she was also a woman, Miss Jenny felt her heart beating faster. "Me? She stuttered. She did not dare to say that she came in to see if there was anything cheap here. "My name is Siren. Is there anything you need? We can buy and sell anything here, hey." This languid woman was naturally Thea's creation in the Sea of Souls. She was a demigod banshee siren, a mixture of soul god power, wealth god power, and art god power. In order to promote economic circulation, well, at least that was what Thea thought. Since she had nothing to do, she sent the Banshee Queen out to do some small business. "Don't be nervous. Sit down and eat something." The Banshee waved her hand and a huge dining table appeared. All kinds of exquisite food that Miss Jenny had never seen before were placed on the table, waiting for her to enjoy. Can I eat? After drinking with the Banshee Queen for half a night and being worried for half a day, Miss Jenny was really hungry. After receiving the siren's signal that she could eat as much as she wanted, she grabbed a drumstick and started eating. She had never been to a Michelin restaurant before, but she felt that her mouth was filled with joy. It was too delicious. She ate in a daze and drank a bowl of soup at the end. Her thoughts were simple. Since she did not have the money to pay, she would just owe the Banshee Queen. The siren did not care about her petty thoughts. The demigod Banshee maintained a smile. "Customer, is there anything else you need? Would you like to make a deal with us?" Thinking that she had taken advantage of the situation, Miss Jenny regained some of her rationality. She asked uncertainly, what kind of deal? She wondered if these people were selling organs. Should she run? Cars, houses, weapons, superpowers, anything you can think of is within the scope of our deal. The siren saw her confusion and continued, "Of course, your deal includes everything you have, money, resources, and even your life and soul." Chapter 767. At first, Miss Jenny was a little cautious, but in the end, she almost laughed out loud. What a joke. Soul. It was the 21st century now. Aliens had already entered the Earth. How could anyone still believe in souls? Was this charming woman a fool? Or was she not a fool? Was she also a Hollywood person? Was this luxurious house actually a reality show? Intelligent beings were used to interpreting everything with their own worldview. Miss Jenny was now in a strange circle. She classified everything that was wrong here as an act. The house belonged to the production crew, and the carpets and sculptures were all fake. This seductive woman also wanted to be a big star. The previous meal was most likely a smokescreen used by the production crew to let him eat a big meal as a reward. In fact, there were countless people hidden in the dark watching his performance. Now that he thought about it, everything made sense. This was a large-scale reality TV show. Realizing that the scene of her eating was seen by so many people, Miss Jenny was a little annoyed. She had to salvage the situation. "Can I really exchange anything?" As if she wanted to show off her acting skills, she was suddenly full of courage and asked fearlessly. The siren was a little surprised. This human was scared like a quail before. Why was she trembling now? However, as long as the transaction was completed, she did not care about the details. She nodded naturally, as long as the customer says so. Miss Jenny lowered her head and pondered. If she said that she was the king of the world or something like that, she would definitely become a joke. She did not want to leave the impression that she was shallow and ignorant. $1 million. Do you have it? She pretended to ask casually. The siren nodded, yes. She took out a check from the drawer and looked at the amount before putting it on the table. Miss Jenny reached out to take it. The siren held her hand with a serious face. "I need your transaction item." "What do I have that is worth $1 million? Miss Jenny chuckled. This crew was quite serious. It was most likely a big production. It was easy to be fooled if one did not know the inside story. She thought that she had succeeded and said, "Didn't you say that souls could pay? How many souls do I need for $1 million? The siren's eyes glowed. "The soul is the source of your life. If you want to complete this transaction, then I need to strip some essence from your soul. It is equivalent to 10 years of life." It would be a lie to say that Miss Jenny was not afraid. Under the mysterious atmosphere, she felt her hair stand on end, but she suppressed it with the idea that the film crew was good at creating a scary atmosphere. She wanted to appear calm and collected, so she said in a tone as if she had seen through everything, "Do you still need to sign some documents, parchment, or something?" A hint of mockery appeared in the depths of the demonist's brows. "My master is the god of wealth of souls. The methods of a mere demon are far too inferior. No, I'll explain it clearly. If you don't mind, this is yours." Siren pushed the check over. Miss Jenny felt as if she was about to lose something. Before she could think about it, her eyes were attracted by the check. She had met a few young talents in the nightclub who squandered money like water. She had seen checks before. She directly reached out and grabbed it. Using her knowledge, She looked at it for a long time. She felt that this check seemed to be real. But how was that possible? "Sir, do you need anything else?" No need. Thank you. I'll leave first." Miss Jenny felt that the film crew most likely used the wrong prop and gave her a real check. She hurriedly ran out of the house. It was not until she ran out of the street that she turned around to look. Seeing that no one was chasing after her, she held the check tightly to her chest and ran back to the rented house. In a place where she could not see, in a luxurious room, Siren bowed to the air. "Master." The young mistress took a step forward and received the soul shadow from the siren. It was fragrant and abnormally agile. Compared to the stinky smell in Charon's river Styx, this was a true soul. Those in the river Styx were all souls of the dead. The trade deity position was compatible with the soul deity position. By using souls as a transaction item, she could absorb a part of the soul essence from a living person and observe the process of the soul from birth to death. She could use this to spy on the death deity position. The most important point was that she was testing the spirit's bottom line. In fact, the spirit boss did not care about this at all. Her principle of fair trade was also one of the rules. The spirit that abided by the rules would not stop her. "Pick 100 people from your tribe and send them to different parts of the world to help me collect souls." Thea finished and returned to her house, leaving Siren to continue fooling people. Thea was very careful. She could only take a maximum of 30 years of life from a person. The decay of the soul would only appear at the end of the life. Large-scale deaths and diseases would not happen at all in a short period of time. In her opinion, this was a completely fair trade. Take Miss Jenny as an example. She might not even be able to get 1 million even if she worked hard for 10 years. To a certain extent, she had made a profit. However, in order to prevent superheroes from coming to clean up the place, she set up a magic barrier that could only be seen by the frustrated people in the trading house. Fiddling with the soul essence in his hand, the sparkling and translucent mist-like gas circled around his fingers. The life aura was endless, mixed with the memories, emotions, and thoughts of the original personality. Everything was in the soul. Unfortunately, this was the soul of an ordinary person. Under her gaze, it turned into dust in less than 3 seconds. Thea felt a little regretful. She needed more pure souls with spiritual energy for her to understand. After receiving the order, the sirens went all out and selected 100 people to go around the world to fool people. In just 3 days, she collected 92 soul essences. The most was 10 years, a few were 20 years, and only one was 30 years. Some traders did not believe it at all and thought that it was an act. There were also some who believed it and even wanted to peek into the details of the trading house to get more. It was a pity that a group of ordinary people were either erased or thrown out casually in the face of the banshees who could be first-line villains in the city. They also traded a variety of things. Most of them wanted money, weapons, health, and one who had been in Hollywood for several years felt that he was not talented enough and wanted to change his artistic talent. As the price, he paid 30 years of his life. Their requests were all met by the trading house. Soon, the news that a room that would grant all requests had appeared all over the world began to spread in the underground world. Anything that could be bought and sold became a hot topic for a long time. A large number of soul essences were collected. Whenever Thea had a new idea, she would take out the soul for verification. As long as she got one of the 2 positions of life and death, her realm and strength would be improved. Chapter 768. Early in the morning at the White House, Missy yawned as she walked out of her room. Her mother, Moira, had been busy for quite some time. "Thea, take a look at this document." Her mother handed her a thick stack of documents. She quickly flipped through them. "The DuPont and the other families feel that their population is too small?" "That's easy. I was just thinking that Earth's population is too high." Thea sighed as she read. Even though these families were blinded by greed, in the face of huge profits, they really burst forth with 200% of their strength. Under the Alliance, they occupied 5 of the 7 planets outside the solar system. The original civilization suffered heavy losses, and the intelligent life was enslaved and killed like the Native Americans. Under the rapid expansion, not only were the young people cheering, even the old people couldn't help but be inspired by the continuous victories. Everywhere they looked, there was money. But even a tiger would sleep, and the enslaved intelligent life was not weak. They would resist, and no matter how advanced the technological weapons were, they would still die if they were stabbed in their sleep. A few big families pulled a spaceship back to Earth to discuss with the government. They needed weapons, energy, and more importantly, people. The situation of overcrowding in the prisons was finally solved. Thea didn't need the government to intervene. She instructed Death Knell to open up all the connections and use money to bring the criminals who couldn't be taught to the outer space and sell them to the big families. It wasn't expensive at all, just a few melons and 2 dates would do. The free cooking system couldn't change the nature of these criminals. Now, the big families who were already somewhat like slave owners needed these people to help them reclaim the wasteland. Whips and iron rods could be used to reclaim their personal value. As for running, the spaceship was controlled by the families, and the criminals could only unite around the big families in the outer space where enemies were everywhere. Blackgate Prison and Belgrave Prison were all swept by Death Knell, and thousands of them were loaded onto the spaceship. If the people didn't report, the government wouldn't investigate. Not only was it tiring to manage these people, it was also dangerous. There were cases where they would stab a few prison guards to death with a toothbrush. Now that there was money, the government pretended not to see. No one cared where these criminals went, from the prison warden to the old man who cleaned up, no one said a word. With many policies and money, the social order was unprecedentedly stable, and the crime rate instantly dropped to the lowest point. The group of people were exhausted, but they were all very happy. Their income had increased several times compared to before. Robbing a burger shop with a gun? You must be joking. I don't have the strength to do that. Thea only paid attention to the macro level and did not pay attention to the details. During the transition period of society, pain was inevitable. Just like Miss Jenny, who had been frustrated before, a policy could not benefit everyone. Thea believed that she had minimized the losses, so she did not feel guilty at all. He worked hard to refine old Shazan's godly power and studied the usage of the godly power of the soul. During the weekends, he would spar with Diana. His days were pretty good. When he entered the Sea of Souls again, he took away all the substances related to Darkseid's godly power. The sirens had reported to her that humans had extracted substances from the sea. Thea also felt that the total amount of godly power was not right, but she could not trace it. Humans had too many dark technologies, and she could not figure out who did it. Diana's twin swords were tainted with the most basic Omega effect, and Darkseid's blood was also rich in it. Thea studied it for 2 days, but she had no clue. This was far beyond her understanding. Perhaps this was why Darkseid had been able to suppress the Heavenly Father. She returned the twin swords to Diana and sealed all the godly power and blood away. He would study it when he reached a higher level. You got off the plane? How's the weather in Cambodia? Wet and rainy? Haha. Diana wanted to learn more about Buddhism, so she carried a travel bag around the world alone. Thea was so busy that she could only call her every day to show her concern. On the other side of the world, Diana hung up the phone happily. A girl beside her elbowed her. Boyfriend. The war goddess answered with certainty, girlfriend. Wow. No matter what their real thoughts were, the rest of the team exclaimed enviously. She had met this team in Phnom Penh. There were 2 men and 2 women. They said that they were university students who were traveling during the holidays. Their destination was Cambodia's tourist destination, Angkor Wat. Diana felt that they were not telling the truth, but she did not mind. She had also used a spell to hide her face, so there was no need to talk about who was lying. Sister Diana, hurry up and follow them. The girl named Cassie urged her to hurry up. She was a couple with a handsome young man named Desi. The other man and woman were Lawrence and his sister, who were also their friends. The 4 of them seemed to have an ulterior motive, but Diana did not care too much. When the 4 of them asked her name, she casually told them that she was Diana. This name was everywhere, so she was not afraid of being exposed. Although they tried their best to hide it, Diana still found them pointing at a map when they were camping. A treasure map. The war goddess shook her head gently. These were young people who had watched too much TV. She wanted to leave the team and travel alone, but the girl, Cassie, kept asking her questions. Diana felt that this girl was not a bad person. The two of them unexpectedly hit it off, and they could chat for half a day about any topic. Although she was not as knowledgeable as Thea, Diana was still a deity. Her knowledge and experience were vast, so she easily won Cassie's respect. In Cassie's heart, this sister Diana was a complete scholar. The five of them drove for 6 hours in 2 cars, and under the guidance of a guide, they entered the Angkor Wat complex. Angkor Wat was built in the 12th century. It was famous for its magnificent architecture and detailed reliefs. At that time, Hinduism was prevalent throughout the Indochina peninsula. In the local language, Angkor Wat was the temple of Vishnu. Vishnu was one of the 3 main deities of Hinduism. Brahma was in charge of creation, Shiva was in charge of destruction, and Vishnu was in charge of protection. His incarnations often changed into various images to save the world. It could be said that his doctrine was the closest to Diana's creed. Unlike the few of them who were just looking at the scenery, Diana carefully observed the rhythm left behind here. As a deity, she could feel that Vishnu had come here before, and most likely held some activities such as lectures. Many of the stone slabs and bricks inside the building were left with the insights of the predecessors. However, few people today could understand Sanskrit. The wisdom of the predecessors was thrown aside, and the magnificent buildings were valued. Diana was not the god of art. She did not care about how beautiful these buildings were. She moved like the wind and looked at the experiences left behind everywhere. She absorbed and learned from those that fit her own path and innovated. She also secretly noted down those that did not fit for future reference. Chapter 769. Sister Diana, come on, these elephants are so fun. The young girl, Cassie, sat on an elephant and waved at her. Thanks to her rich knowledge, she answered all the questions along the way. The other 3 young people who were looking for treasures were also waiting for her. Diana shook her head and chuckled. Thea had 2 small elephants at home, and that was a little fun. The elephants in this tourist attraction were dull and had been tamed to the point of numbness. What was so fun about them? Instead of riding with them on the same elephant, he found one that looked a little more spirited, stepped on the pedals, and with a nimble somersault, he mounted it. The power of the goddess was not just for show. The elephant felt a fear that struck its heart, and its limbs went soft. It almost knelt down before her. Fortunately, Diana comforted it with her divine power in time, so it did not attract the attention of the tourists. Let's go to Mount Bacan. In the excited cheer of the young girl, the 2 elephants walked forward slowly. Mount Bacan was a small hill in the main ruins of Angkor Grotto. It was the only commanding height in the vicinity. On the hill was the ruins of a temple of Angkor Grotto. It was the first national temple built in the era of Yasovarman I, after the area near Angkor city of Great Wu became the capital. It laid the foundation of the later architecture of Angkor Grotto. The scenery was unique and the view was broad, so it was the first choice of many tourists. The 5 of them rode slowly up the hill, and the whole complex of buildings was in sight. Cass's boyfriend, Desai, seemed to care about Diana and asked her if she was tired, whether she needed rest, and so on. In the end, he pretended not to care and asked a few questions casually. In Diana's view, these questions were at least questions that could be asked by a professor who specialized in ancient Hindu history. She was a little curious, but she did not ask more and gave the answers very quickly. Desai thanked her profusely and left, leaving his girlfriend to talk to Diana. What is your boyfriend studying? You guys are not doing anything illegal, are you? In fact, Diana had always disliked Americans. They took themselves too seriously, and at the same time, they did not take other countries seriously. The biggest characteristic was that there were countless people who broke the law abroad. You're always talking about the democratic spirit of the United States Constitution. Is there a need to talk about this in someone else's territory? In her opinion, These young people were here to rob Wu Cow, split the money, and enjoy themselves. This was the habit of many young people in the United States. They were not ashamed of it. Instead, they were proud of it. They thought that it was cool and handsome. Even when they were middle-aged and old, they could still brag to their children about how they were in the past. Bad values were passed down from generation to generation. Diana felt that Casey's nature was kind, and she needed to guide her on the path of kindness instead of slowly degenerating into a criminal. At this moment, Casey also felt that her boyfriend's so-called treasure hunting plan was a little beyond her expectations. She thought that it was just for fun so that she could brag about it with her friends in the future. But now, no matter how she looked at it, it was strange. However, her love for her boyfriend made her suppress the doubts in her heart. She told Diana that everything was normal. The Valkyrie was not an inflexible person. In addition, she had been hanging out with Thea for too long, and her acting skills were somewhat similar to Stanislavski's. Naturally, she skipped the topic and changed the topic. The next day, at dawn, seeing that they were packing their bags, Diana said goodbye to them. They told each other to take care and exchanged contact information with the young girl Cassie. Diana carried her bag and walked towards another road alone. When the young people saw that Diana had disappeared at the end of their sight, they packed their bags and hurriedly walked in the other direction. Little did they know that Diana took a detour and walked back. Her magic skills were not as good as Milady's, but she still knew how to use a basic invisibility spell. She watched from afar as they constantly adjusted their direction and finally stopped in front of a very old temple. This was the outermost area of the entire Angkor Wat. Even the children begging for food would not come here, let alone tourists. The young girl, Casey, was anxiously talking to her boyfriend, but Desi decisively pushed her away. He then cut his palm and smeared his blood on a very ordinary stone pillar. There was no earth-shattering noise, nor was there any gorgeous curtain. The four of them simply disappeared into the air. Damn it! It's a teleportation spell. Diana cursed in her heart. She should not have watched. She should have stopped them in time. No longer hiding her tracks, she flew over. Before the teleportation energy disappeared, she took the opportunity to sneak in. After breaking through the water ripple-like spatial barrier, the first thing that came into view was a dim yellow sky and a blood-red ground. The temperature in the air was very high, and in the dense mist, there were faintly discernible strange figures moving not far away. It's like a small plane of hell. Following Thea, Diana was now much more knowledgeable than in the original timeline. She just glanced around and determined her location. She was not worried about herself. Even if she could not find the exit, she could rely on the mother box to return to Earth. She was worried about the few young people. She looked around with her clear eyes. The few young people were nowhere to be seen. She could only search in one direction. Behind a small slope tens of kilometers away, Desi and Casey, the young couple, were lying on the ground. Casey's body was much stronger than ordinary people. She woke up the fastest. She shook her head and slowly got up. When she saw her boyfriend lying unconscious not far away, she hurriedly ran over. Desi was shaken by her a few times, and slowly woke up. Looking at the different atmosphere around him, his eyes became more and more spirited. It's here. Yes, it's exactly the same as what was recorded in the book. Desi nodded enthusiastically and kept talking to himself. Casey was frightened by her boyfriend's strange behavior. The air here made her very uncomfortable. It was a warning to her soul, telling her to leave this place quickly. She cried and begged her boyfriend to find the exit. What do you know? This is the sealed land of the gods. If we can get what's inside, we can also become the best. Desi saw that his girlfriend was just crying, and he really loved Casey. He thought about his words and took out a palm-sized notebook. This is a record passed down from generation to generation in my family. My ancestor came to this land during the age of exploration. He learned about the legend of the sealed land from many locals. It was said that there was an unparalleled power that could destroy the world. Unfortunately, he was just an ordinary person, and the door to the mysterious world was never opened to him. I thought that I would be mediocre for the rest of my life, working in a garage. I didn't expect fate to favor me. Look at this. As he spoke, he took out a tattered piece of parchment. The young girl, Casey, took it in a daze. She looked left and right but could not understand the crooked words on it. Chapter 770. This was exactly the effect Desi wanted. Did you know, this is magical text, magical text. This piece of paper fell into the market along with a pile of books belonging to the Rockefeller family. I don't know why these large families would abandon so many of their treasures to the market. I only know that it recorded some of the essays of the great alchemist Magnus. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was worthless, but it helped me decipher the secret treasures left behind by my ancestors. Desi held up the notes and parchment. The records of our ancestors, the interpretation of the magical text, and the knowledge of that Diana. All of these together allowed us to reach this place today. This is the arrangement of fate, you shouldn't resist it. As if the words that had been bottled up in his heart for a long time were finally spoken, his eyes emitted a strong obsession, or perhaps it could be called fanaticism. Casey didn't know why her boyfriend had become like this. After all, last month they were still discussing about getting married once they reached legal age, researching about the mortgage, and whatever alien trade was too far away from them. Casey didn't understand the relationship between her boyfriend and the Rockefeller family, she only wanted to know how her originally peaceful and happy life had become like this. Follow me. Desi looked at the dusky sky, he was actually a bit scared, but he forcefully suppressed his fear and checked the surroundings with the notes, indicating for Casey to follow him. Aren't we going to look for the Lawrence siblings? Why would we look for them? Desi asked in a cold tone, as if Casey had said something stupid. Casey's face was full of helplessness, she could only follow her boyfriend as they walked through the scarlet ground. Desi kept checking the notes, he walked faster and faster. If it wasn't for the unknown power in Casey's body, she would have been shaken off long ago. It's here, it must be here. In front of a deep pit, there were 5 stone pillars surrounding each other. Desi looked at the patterns on the pillars, as if he had found some kind of treasure. He used all his strength to kick down a stone pillar, but he was afraid that it wasn't safe enough, so he used all his strength to knock down all 4 pillars. He hurriedly ran down and tripped over a stone on the road, but he didn't care as he rolled and crawled into the pit. Desi. Casey stood at the edge and shouted. The warning in her heart was on the verge of exploding. She really didn't want to go any further. Desi turned a deaf ear to his girlfriend's call. He rolled all the way to the center of the deep pit. His hands were like a windmill as he crazily dug into the ground. From time to time, he would mutter, my baby, I'm coming. His movements were very fast. In the middle of the deep pit, he dug out a blood-red gem. The stone was as big as a watermelon. It had a bumpy surface, but every edge of the stone was sparkling and translucent. Inside the stone, there seemed to be a dense and splendid cloud of fire moving around. Desi held the stone with a sacred look. His eyes were filled with expectation, as if he was looking at an extremely precious treasure. Neither of them saw that when Diesel picked up the gem, a black mist emerged from the deepest part of the ground and slowly wrapped around Diesel's body. Desai hugged the jewel and looked forward to his future. Tycoon, president, king, emperor? Who would have thought that a sharp spike would emerge from the gem and pierce his palm with a pu sound, shattering his beautiful dream? He hurriedly let go of his hand in pain. The gem retracted its spike and didn't fall to the ground as he expected. Instead, it strangely floated in the air. The red cloud inside the gem circulated even more intensely, as if a red ink was wantonly dancing in the air. After absorbing a bit of his blood, the ruby became even more resplendent. Fragments of light scattered in the halo, illuminating the area within a few thousand meters. Don't. Desi saw that the ruby ignored him and flew towards Casey. He suddenly thought of something. He was jealous and regretful. His heart hurt as if it was dripping blood. The ruby disintegrated in the air and turned into a set of deep red armor. The surface of the armor was covered with sharp spikes. It was filled with a murderous aura. From afar, it seemed to contain an evil charm. Under Desi's hateful gaze, The armor disintegrated into a dozen pieces in the air and pounced towards the young girl, Casey. Casey, dodge! Casey, dodge! Desi and Diana, who arrived late, roared at the same time. Although their motives were different, their words were unexpectedly the same. The young girl, Casey, reacted half a beat slower. When she wanted to dodge, the ruby had already turned into a meteor and collided with her. Ah! The young girl, Casey, only had time to let out half a cry of surprise before the second half was drowned out by the intense pain. The last thing she saw was her boyfriend's cruel gaze. Her vision turned black and she fainted. No! Diana shouted. She had already seen that although the armor had spikes on the outside, there were also spikes of the same length on the inside. If you want to hurt others, you have to hurt yourself first. This was very similar to the thorny belt of the ancient ascetics. They used a barbed belt to tie the armor to the body, constantly reminding themselves to absorb strength from pain. Unfortunately, she was too far away and was one step too late when she flew over. Shoulder pads, arm guards, leg guards, cloak, and helmet were all equipped in less than a third of a second. The deep red armor was firmly rooted in Casey's body. Large amounts of blood flowed out from the gaps in the armor. The originally dim armor was nourished by the blood and its color became even brighter, as if it was plated with a layer of dim light. Casey, hold on, I'll get you out. Diana couldn't be bothered to teach Desi a lesson. She reached out to take off the armor, but her arm was stopped halfway by the deep red vambrace. The helmet emitted 2 rays of light. Diana's aura soared. Casey was now completely unconscious and had become the armor controlling the human body. This armor was nothing in her eyes. She raised her strength to 30% and wanted to forcefully pull Casey out. Placing her wrist on the armor's shoulder pads, Diana was ready to tear them apart. The crimson armor's reaction wasn't slow. It lowered its shoulder and retreated, at the same time punching out with its right fist. Diana didn't back down. Her jade-white palm was as fast as lightning. She placed it on the shoulder pads and was about to use her strength to tear this piece off. Unexpectedly, a flashing crimson lasso flew out from the armor's left hand and coiled around a distant boulder like a snake, nimbly dodging Diana's sure-kill attack. The treasure is mine, it has to be mine. You can't take it away. I found it after much effort. Desi's body was hunched and he staggered out of the deep pit. His body was covered in black gas. His gaze was blurred as he looked at the crimson armor in the distance, ignoring the strange aura on it. It was as if he was looking at his true love. Diana, who was about to give chase, stopped in her tracks. There was something wrong with this young man. Something was very wrong. Such dense evil magic power wasn't something a normal person could control. Chapter 771. Realizing that things were getting out of hand, Diana had no choice but to put on her armor and take out her swords. One of them was unconscious, and the other seemed to be possessed by a demon. She no longer needed to hide her identity. Desi growled like a wild beast. Along with the pain on his face was an irresistible power. An ordinary person had crossed the demigod level and reached the true god level in front of Diana's eyes, or it could be said that he had the power of a true god. Diana looked at the shadow behind him. It had horns, white hair, 2 pairs of evil eyes, and dark red skin that seemed to be able to overturn the universe. Even though she had never seen it before, both Thea and Raven had told her about it. It was the 3 Palace Demon. It's just a projection. Diana was relieved after identifying it. Thea had told Diana many things about powerful beings in order to strengthen her belief. According to Thea's estimation, the 3 Palace Demon was stronger than Darkseid. It was hard to tell how much stronger they were, but they were definitely stronger than Zeus. Thea had been weak back then, and she had not seen much of the world. Now, she could be considered a master. Looking back at the sealed 3 Palace Demon, she instantly understood that it was not the real thing. It was at most a clone. Connecting the memories, it was impossible to guess that the sealed 3 Palace Demon was the clone summoned by the cultists on Earth. If Raven Lowly was the daughter of the 3 Palace Demon, it would be more accurate to say that she was the daughter of the clone. If the real 3 Palace Demon entered a plane like Earth, It would definitely cause the universe to explode. In other words, the house was too small, and its body was too big. Back then, Seer and Raven had sealed a doppelganger, and its strength should be on par with Darkseid's doppelganger. The one before Diana now was at best a projection of the doppelganger's doppelganger. The war goddess was not afraid. She had no problem fighting a mere projection. Of course, the best solution now was to summon Thea to help. But she did not want to do that. The problem in front of her was caused by her, so she had to solve it herself. The only problem was whether the Crimson Armor would find an excuse to escape if he was held back by the 3-palace magic projection. Fortunately, luck was on her side. The ancient armor that had suppressed the projection of the 3 demonic palaces for thousands of years, even if its spirituality had been tainted by the demonic aura, it still remembered the mission that it was created for. The red lasso swung and attacked the great demon. Defy was completely demonized, and the 3 palaces behind him slowly faded away. This didn't mean that he had worn them away, but that the transformation of Defy's body was almost complete. His originally handsome face was distorted beyond recognition. There were horns protruding from his forehead, and there was another pair of eyes above his eyes that seemed to be struggling to open. The human hand was the first to complete the transformation. A blood-red light flashed, and a giant hand wrapped in black gas moved like lightning. It grabbed the lasso and pulled in the opposite direction, wanting to pull the Crimson Armor over. Diana naturally wouldn't let go of this opportunity. She pulled out her 2 swords and slid towards the demon's legs. Divine power covered the 2 swords. Just by looking at their sharpness, one could feel that they were unstoppable. The 2 swords danced and cut through the air. The projection of the 3 demonic palaces didn't dare to be negligent. His shoulders and legs didn't move, and his body moved 3 meters to the left to dodge the attack. As if seeing Diana's power, he let go of the Crimson Armor's lasso. He waved his hands repeatedly, stirring up a monstrous amount of magic. With a push of his hands, a blood-red light spurted out, and a torrential amount of magic surged forward. Facing a torrential amount of magic, Diana didn't dare to underestimate it. However, retreating and dodging wasn't her style. Even if she was facing an undefeatable enemy, she still had to face the challenge head-on, not to mention that this guy in front of her wasn't that strong. Putting away her 2 swords, the Valkyrie raised the power of the silver bracelet to the extreme. With a loud roar, she used all the divine power in her body to smash the sea of magic. A 10-meter-wide passage was opened in the turbulent sea under the impact of the golden divine power. The Valkyrie didn't stop there. She turned into a strong light and punched the 3 demonic palaces through the sea. The demon, who was at a disadvantage, was still burning with magic flames. At this time, his body had already been transformed. His 4 eyes were looking at Diana, flashing with an evil light. The air within a few hundred meters was so heavy that it was almost stagnant. Diana often sparred with Thea, so it wasn't like she hadn't seen eye attacks before. She stepped on the ground with 1 foot and used the force to fly up. She pulled out her sword and slashed down. The 3 demonic palaces weren't surprised that his eye attack was dodged. His body suddenly grew a lot taller. Crimson magic flames enveloped his whole body. His steel-like hand grabbed the sword and exerted force in his palm, wanting to throw her away. The Valkyrie did a backflip and pulled out her sword. At the same time, she took out her lightning spear and thrust it at his arm. Boom! A crisp sound rang out. Lightning had a great restraining effect on demons. When the 2 sides suddenly made contact, it was like a thunderclap. The 3 demonic palaces finally took a step back in the battle. Diana was unforgiving. She waved her spear and aimed it at the demon's head. The Valkyrie was confident that this move could take down the demon. She was very careful with her moves. She mostly used the side of her spear to hit the demon. It would be best if she could shake the demon away from Desi's body. After that, no matter what she did, she would be able to move freely. Unfortunately, a crimson lasso wrapped around the tip of her spear. She had used up all her strength, so she hurriedly increased her strength. The 3 demonic palaces relied on the lasso's delay to dodge the fatal blow in a split second. Damn it! Diana was a little angry. This broken armor couldn't distinguish between good and bad, causing her to miss a good opportunity. The demon silently laughed, his eyes filled with ruthlessness. He waved his hand and pulled down 2 meteors from the sky, smashing them towards Diana. At the same time, he spat out a red light from his mouth. The red light scattered in the air and turned into a red cloud. As the haze filled the air, he crazily released all kinds of magic related to fire, darkness, and earth. Diana wrapped herself with divine power. With the spear in her left hand and the shield in her right, she nimbly weaved through all kinds of magic. She was a little anxious. Defy, with his human body as his foundation, wouldn't be able to hold on for long. But no matter how anxious she was, she couldn't rush into the range of the 3 demonic palaces. Every time she was about to approach, she would be interrupted by the crimson armor. She was obviously very strong, but she couldn't display it. This made her suffer. Fortunately, the 3 demonic palaces couldn't completely control the armor. The more he tried to control it, the faster the armor's self-awareness would recover. At first, Diana was fighting 1 against 2, but slowly, it became 2 against 1 between Diana and the crimson armor. But when the armor's magic power was overused, the 3 demonic palaces' control would gain the upper hand. It would turn around and attack Diana again. This cycle was endless. Chapter 772. Among the 3, Diana was the strongest, but she didn't dare to kill 2 ordinary people. She was clumsy, and the fight was a little ugly. The 3-palace demon was the most experienced, and also the most cunning. He repeatedly foiled Diana's attacks, and even countered the Valkyrie's attack with a punch. And the crimson armor was swaying left and right in the middle, helping this and that one moment. Diana used the remaining force of the 3-palace demon's punch to fly out of the battle circle, and with a wave of her hand, she sent a ball of her golden divine power into the armor. She wanted to awaken the young girl Cassie in the armor. In fact, Cassie had already been awakened by the intense pain. Every jump and attack of the armor was like stirring her body. Fortunately, she had a different physique than ordinary people, and the armor's barbs were for training, not for killing. The armor would return a portion of her power after every action. Otherwise, if she wasn't an ancient monk, she would have died long ago without a body as tough as diamond. In a daze, she looked at the battle outside like an outsider. Seeing her new friend Diana wearing the armor and wielding a spear and 2 swords, Cassie knew that her new friend was the superhero Wonder Woman. However, Cassie didn't have the intention to ask for an autograph. She only felt that this was a nightmare, and she hoped that she would wake up soon. Diana's divine power helped her. Warmth, sunshine, and many other precious qualities. Perseverance allowed her to gradually return from the perspective of an outsider to her own body. Cassie, can you hear me? Cassie, it's Diana. I need your power. Pull yourself together. Persevere. Control this armor. You are the master. Make it act according to your orders. You can do it. Diana's voice was hazy at first, as if it came from the horizon. Then, it slowly became clear, and Cassie finally understood the situation. I can't do it. It doesn't listen to my orders. The young girl wanted to control the armor, even if she could only control a finger, but her body was as stiff as a rock. Her nerves, bones, and muscles were like someone else's. Her orders couldn't be transmitted to her body at all. The young girl couldn't speak, she could only shout in her heart. She wanted to tell Diana loudly that she was just an ordinary girl, not a superhero. She didn't have such strong beliefs. However, Diana acted as if she didn't hear her. Her warm words kept encouraging her and encouraging her. She was like an elder sister, but more often than not, she was like a mother looking after her child. You can do it. Hang in there. You'll succeed soon. I have confidence in you. Under Diana's constant encouragement, the young lady Cassie mustered the courage to control her body several times, but she also failed several times. There were no sarcastic remarks, no strange gazes, only the usual support and encouragement. Cassie's heart was heavy. She did not want to betray this trust. Try hard and fail. Try again and still fail. Persevere. Continue to persevere. The girl, who had always gone with the flow, Never thought that she would one day have such a strong belief. Ah! A cry that came from the depths of his soul finally came out from his mouth. The armor seemed to have realized the strong change in its host. It handed over control and fell silent. "Cassie, you're amazing." The girl heard a familiar voice. It wasn't a telepathic conversation, but a voice that was transmitted through the air, through her eardrums, and into her brain. "Me?" Looking at the crimson armor on her arm, she was a little stunned. "Come and help save Desi. I believe you can do it." Diana interrupted her daze. Desi. It felt like something that happened a century ago. It took her a while to remember that he was her boyfriend. At that moment, countless information entered her mind. Cass's eyes flashed. She already understood. These were the armor's instructions, or perhaps it should be called the armor of silence. The flashing red lasso drew an arc in the air and wrapped around the Tripalis demon. The great demon revealed a ferocious smile. His gaze pierced through the armor, through the flesh, and looked directly at Cass's soul. What a terrifying gaze. It was filled with monstrous hatred and all negative emotions. Cass's mental defense that she worked so hard to build was quickly collapsing. Fortunately, the young rookie quasi-hero was not facing the great demon alone. Diana had already seen this scene. She admired this little girl. She took action a little later because she wanted to use this opportunity to train her character. She wanted to guard against arrogance and impatience. The armor was not omnipotent. The key was still in one's heart. A strong heart was the key to victory. "Demon, look at me and say your name." Diana threw out her lasso of truth just as Cass's lasso was about to be broken. She had trapped Desi's body. According to the rules, the Tripalis demon could only say the original owner's name. The result was not surprising. The original Tripalis demon could resist the lasso of truth. There was no doubt about this. This clone projection was far from it. Desi. The moment the name was said, the Tripalis demon projection was kicked out of Desi's body by the power of the rules. Diana did not have time to look at the unconscious youth. She took out the thunder spear and threw it at the projection that had just left the body and had yet to fully condense into a form. Boom! With a loud explosion, the Tripalis demon projection was blown into pieces and disappeared from the world. Diana only heaved a sigh of relief when she could no longer see the shadow. Desi. The young girl Cassie could only call out her boyfriend's name from a distance. She was afraid that the spikes on her body would hurt her boyfriend. His body is just too weak. He will be fine after some rest. Diana checked and said with certainty. The air here is very bad. I placed the Lawrence siblings not far away. Let's leave this place first. Diana carried Desi and found the other two people who had been unconscious until now. She opened the sonic tunnel and returned to the place where they had left. They avoided the sight of the tourists and found their own car. Diana used a gem sealed with a powerful healing spell on the three of them. Desi was the first to wake up. He looked straight at Cassie, who was wrapped in armor. Even if he did not see her face, he knew that she was his girlfriend. However, he did not say a word. He looked at her coldly and drove away alone. Looking at her boyfriend who drove away alone until he disappeared from her sight, the young girl Cass's emotions finally emerged from the bottom of her heart. She was very sad. She understood the look in her boyfriend's eyes when he left. It was full of resentment. He hated why the armor did not choose him. He hated how she could get something for nothing. He hated her to this extent. The original emotional connection had long disappeared. Cassie did not think that she could go back to live a normal life with her armor. Since her boyfriend wanted to leave, she would let him go. Chapter 773. They're about to wake up. Do you want to talk to them? Diana pointed at her other companion and asked. No, they're all Desi's friends. It's better if they don't see me like this. The girl's voice came from within the armor, a little distorted. Then come with me first, let's see if I can solve your current problem. She could barely use invisibility, but Diana's teleportation was sloppy and ordinary. Instead of teleporting, she preferred to fly by herself. She didn't dare to teleport with others. The two of them ran towards the dense forest on the other side. Looking at the trees rapidly receding in front of her eyes, and the air being compressed by her high speed, creating wind resistance, Casey, who was running to her heart's content, felt a burst of joy, but when she thought of her future fate, she felt an inexplicable sadness. Now I'm also considered a superpower user, right? Everyone wants superpowers, even a girl who likes to fantasize is no exception, but the price to pay for superpowers is a little too high, Casey thought self-deprecatingly. Can I fly? Looking at Diana flying close to the ground, the girl Casey tried her best to forget her worries and diverted her attention to ask. Diana didn't know the answer to this question, but she explained some of the key points of flying, like Thea, who used magic to fly, and Superman, who used physical strength to fly. The girl's perception wasn't low, as she ran while thinking about the few situations that Diana explained. At first, she could only jump, but as she slowly understood the flow of air, her body seemed to become lighter and lighter, and in the end, she actually staggered and floated. Haha, I can fly. The girl was overjoyed, and the haze in her heart finally dissipated by half. Diana was also very surprised. This girl's talent was unexpectedly high, and it wasn't unreasonable for the armor to choose her. After a few more experiments, the girl wearing the armor had strength, speed, endurance, reflexes, and flying ability that far exceeded a normal person, and had no shortcomings in any aspect. If trained well, she would be a great hero in the future. Diana once again strengthened her confidence. After running at high speed, the two of them found a secluded forest. Diana sat cross-legged on the ground and gestured for Casey to sit as well. Do you know who I am? She asked first. After learning how to fly and running for a while, Casey, who was depressed because of her boyfriend's departure, recovered a lot. She nodded and said, "Superhero Wonder Woman Diana Prince, I've seen reports about you on the internet." Then, she seemed to have thought of something. "I heard that you're the lover of the first daughter." Diana had the urge to cover her face. "You're already like this, yet you're still so gossipy." However, this girl was very fond of her, so she couldn't bear to scold her. "You're right, but don't change the topic. Let's return to your question. I won't covet your armor, but can you take it back now?" The girl's tone was a little dejected. "There's only combat information in the armor. It doesn't say how to retrieve it." Diana proposed that she would like to check herself, and the girl said that she could do as she pleased. After checking for a long time, Diana taught her a few secrets to restore her state of mind and tried to help her take off the armor. Unfortunately, the armor was completely connected to her body, as if it was a part of her body. It couldn't be taken away just because she was calm. Diana tried to take it apart by force, but it was useless except for making the girl roll on the ground in pain. "I don't have a way. If you don't mind, my lover might have a way. If it doesn't work, she can also seal your armor," Diana said after some consideration. The half-grown Casey agreed readily, but her tone was a little uncertain as she asked, "Is it Miss Thea Quinn? Do you need to go back to America?" "I'm afraid I'm." Diana waved her hand. "I won't go back. Get out of the way. Watch my great summoning." The call ended. The Azure teleportation spell flashed, and Thea stepped out. It wasn't clear on the phone, so the two goddesses told each other everything from beginning to end. "You only noticed that she's extraordinary. Nothing else?" Thea asked playfully. The Valkyrie was confused by her lover's question. She shook her head to show that she didn't know. "Hehe, if I'm not wrong, she's your relative. Judging by her bloodline, she's Zeus' granddaughter." Thea had absorbed a lot of Zeus' divine power. She was sure of this. This was also the main reason why the armor chose the girl over Desi. Their physical attributes were on a completely different level. Diana was a little surprised, but not too surprised. Zeus' 1-meter-tall household register didn't change at all. He had too many children. "Don't tell her this," Diana reminded her softly. She emphasized her wish to take her as a disciple. Thea didn't mind. The two girls quickly talked about the three-palace demon. "The projection of the three-palace demon is so powerful." Hee. "Miss Casey, does your armor have a name?" Thea gave a thumbs up to the earthlings who were good at courting death. Did they have nothing better to do, so they summoned a demon for fun? They didn't want the low-level ones, so they summoned the fiercest one. After listening to the story, she didn't comment and turned to ask the girl Casey. Casey was a little nervous when this super beauty suddenly asked her. Thea knew that Diana wasn't fighting, so she didn't change out of her armor. Instead, she wore casual clothes. Thea didn't bring any jewelry. She wore an off-shoulder beige dress with a pair of 5-centimeter high heels. It wasn't overly sexy, but it was graceful and gorgeous. She didn't feel out of place walking in this barren forest in such a beautiful outfit. Miss Casey, who didn't have high standards for clothing, didn't know that it was the influence of wealth and divine power. She only felt that the first daughter exuded a noble aura. It says it's called the silent armor. Casey scratched her head after saying that. Then, she felt stupid, like an ugly duckling. She hurriedly put her hands down. Silent armor? So she's Diana's disciple in the original timeline, the magical girl? Thea nodded to herself. The Valkyrie also talked about the purpose of summoning her. She wanted to see if the armor could be removed or retracted into her body. If it didn't work, she would seal it. In short, it shouldn't affect Casey's daily life. Thea used her magic to scan the armor from front to back and left to right. She lowered her head and pondered for a moment. This armor was specially made by the ancient heroes to deal with the 3-palace demon. It had a strong sense of sacrifice. In the eyes of the ancient people, once they put on this armor, they wouldn't rest until they died. They had no intention of taking it off. However, this wasn't a problem for her. The characteristic of ancient magic was its grandeur. Its external appearance was that it was tall and full of power. It was far inferior to modern magic in terms of refinement. Even if it wasn't the original method, Thea still found a loophole in the armor. She spent half an hour drawing a modern magic circle for the armor. Casey followed her instructions and successfully retracted the armor, or at least a part of it. Chapter 774. The shoulder pads, chest pads, and helmet of the silent armor were all retracted, leaving only the arm pads and leg pads outside. The rest of the armor became a red tights worn on her body. Your compatibility with the silent armor is not high enough. When you two are indistinguishable from each other, it can be completely retracted into your body. Knowing that Diana was going to train with Cassie for a few days, Thea said this before she left to at least give her some ability to protect herself. Leaving Diana to teach Miss Cassie, Thea brought her secretary, Miss Maisie, a bunch of bodyguards, and financial lawyers to Gotham City an hour later. The departure of the reclusive families allowed her to regain a large amount of capital, and she needed to reconfirm her shares in Wayne Group. Old Lucius did not like her entering Wayne Group from a CEO's point of view, but the current situation left him with no choice. Although Thea's shares were not more than half, there was no doubt that she was number one. Today, money was just a number to her. She had personally come to confirm her shares, and another matter was to discuss the opening of part of Wayne Group's patented technology to the new manufacturing industry. This matter would definitely hurt Wayne Group's profits, but she guessed that Bruce would not object. Both parties entered the conference room, and she saw that the person who was going to negotiate with her today was Tim Drake. In public, Tim Drake was attending Wayne Group's meeting as Bruce Wayne's adopted son. Taking off his red combat suit, eye patch, and suit and tie, Tim really had the temperament of a rich young master today. He was handsome, cultured, and had a calm demeanor when he spoke. His rich knowledge and wisdom made him look like a young and creative leader. Everyone knew Thea's identity, but the members of the Bat family had two sets of identities. Even if they had just fought monsters on the moon, they had to pretend not to know her. After a few simple greetings, they finally got to the point. As for Thea's proposal to open up part of the patents to ordinary people to carry out manufacturing, Tim fully agreed. Although Wayne Group's economy would suffer, he believed that Batman would agree. Old Lucius did not express much of his opinion. You have too much money and want to spend it. What does it have to do with me? I'm just an employee. Thank you for the support of Wayne Corporation and Mr. Drake. I will. Thea shook hands with Tim. Even though Tim was known for his calmness, he was still very nervous when this super beauty shook hands with him. Before Thea could finish her words, she suddenly felt an indescribable palpitation. This omen came without reason, like an irresistible hurricane blowing through her heart. On the ground, in the forests, there were countless cries, but the intelligent creatures did not feel anything. Everyone was living and working as usual. What was that? Thea was shocked and glanced at Tim beside her. Old Fox and the secretary didn't notice anything. They were puzzled as to why she looked as if she had seen a ghost. Something must have happened. She was very sure that the signal just now was transmitted to her by the will of the universe. However, compared to the consciousness of Earth 2, which was like a child, the will of this universe was like a titan. She did not understand much. Sia's first reaction was that someone had changed the timeline. Was it the Flashpoint incident? She looked carefully and found that her family was not affected at all. The development of Earth was still the same as it was a tenth of a second ago, stable and peaceful. Barry Allen, who was far away in Central City, was having dinner with heirs and discussing marriage. It definitely wasn't him. What the hell happened? A hurried phone call interrupted her thoughts. Tim gave her an apologetic look and picked up the phone. After saying a few words, he was also stunned. Bruce is missing. What do you mean he's missing? Thea heard the voice of the old butler Alfred on the other side of the phone. She couldn't suppress the doubts in her heart. The old butler had always been as calm as Mount Tai. Something big must have happened, or he wouldn't have made this call. I'll go check on Bu. Lu. What happened to Mr. Sai? The surface of the Batcave was full of lead, so she could only fly over to investigate. In front of a group of business elites from Wayne Corporation and Wayne Corporation, she activated the teleportation spell and reappeared in Wayne's old mansion. Alfred, what happened? She quickly found the old butler in the side hall. The old butler was anxiously making a call. Thank God, Miss Thea. You came just in time. Hurry up. Come with me. The old butler panted heavily and couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. Thea could only inject a small amount of magic into him to help him stabilize. The old butler panted for a while. Master is missing. Sia's head was full of question marks. Who was missing? How did he disappear? I went to get him coffee. It was only 2 minutes, and he disappeared into thin air. There was no battle, no signs of superpowers, at least I didn't see anything. Come with me. With that, he pulled Thea to the secret door. According to the old butler, Batman was studying something, but in the blink of an eye, a living person disappeared. Oh my God. Was Bruce sitting on this chair before? Thea felt a familiar aura as soon as she entered the Batcave. She quickly walked into the inner room and pointed to a chair. The old butler nodded eagerly. Thea felt that her expression must be very funny. She was completely dumbfounded. Although the aura here was disappearing very quickly, and the remnants were almost negligible, she could still determine that there were remnants of the Omega effect here, and even some remnants of her own obliterating eye. Her ray energy had stopped here before, and she was certain that she was not wrong about this. She looked around in a daze. Are you sure it's not April Fool's Day? Are you all not teaming up to make fun of me? Batman was studying the Omega ray and her obliterating eye. Then, he lost himself. Master Bat had dug his own grave. The image of a red light and a green light intersecting each other appeared in Sia's mind, before they smashed into Batman with a boom. The siren had warned her that someone had sneaked into her sea of souls, but she didn't take it seriously. Now, the culprit seemed to be Batman. Why was this guy so restless? Even she, who could fight with Darkseid, found the Omega effect difficult to understand and chose to seal it. Where did Master Bat get the courage to study it himself? Even she, a god, couldn't decipher it. Did he think that he could figure it out with a wrench and a screwdriver? There should be a limit to his advanced technology. Looking at the empty chair and the old butler's expectant eyes, Thea didn't know if she should say something. Chapter 775. The old butler looked at her earnestly. Thea scratched her head. She had some guesses, but she was not sure if she was right. Batman Bruce Wayne was rich, had a house, his parents were dead, and he was a handsome middle-aged man. Other than having a son who was a burden, he was perfect in all other aspects. The world's consciousness would not alert him. He was just not qualified. A normal Batman could die 1,000 times. He could be killed by a car, choked on food, or smashed to death by a flower pot. It had nothing to do with the world's consciousness. Thea was sure of that. But it was related to the Omega effect and the Eye of Obliteration. His life and death were at the level of the rules. If it was not handled well, it would be a universal disaster. Thea interrupted the old butler. This is very, very complicated. I need to ask someone who knows. I can't explain it in a short time. If Superman, Diana, and the others come, tell them to wait for me. I'll come back as soon as I get the answer. She went to the new planet. The Heavenly Father was no doubt a wise man. Your Majesty, you know. After a simple greeting, she had just started when the Heavenly Father raised his hand to interrupt her. He looked at the guards around them. The question you want to ask is too big and too unbelievable. Let's not talk about it here. The two of them stepped out of the territory of the new gods. Walking across the abandoned land, he could still see traces of the battle between the Father and Darkseid a few months ago. Their power was ancient and pure, and time could not erase it. Once their power was unleashed, it would last forever. Thea was not as good as the Heavenly Father. Her Sea of Souls could not last more than 10,000 years. It was only a matter of time before it dried up. I'm glad that you can sense the changes in the multiverse. But I still want to ask you something. Do you really want to know the meaning behind this and the truth behind it? The Heavenly Father asked after walking for a long time. His tone was not very firm. How big could it be? Thea scoffed. You don't know that the cultists on Earth summoned the 3 palace demons, do you? Of course, their original plan was to summon Lucifer directly. It was just that he mistook Feng Jing for Ma Liang. There were also some South American cult groups that summoned giant beasts. Miraculously, they actually succeeded. A group of heroes were knocked to the ground and called for their fathers. In the end, it was God who stepped in to save them. Courage was the unique talent of Earthlings, and Thea felt that she also had this talent. Her eyes were filled with determination as she nodded lightly, indicating that the Heavenly Father could tell his story now. Only Darkseid and I know about this. You're stronger than the gods, so you're qualified to know. But remember, don't tell the gods, not even Diana. Can you do that? The Heavenly Father asked. I promise I won't say anything, she said sincerely. Goddess Thea, do you know how the multiverse under our jurisdiction was born? Thea thought that she knew, but her actual level was probably not, so there was no need for her to show off. Weren't you and Darkseid the one who established it? Haha. The Heavenly Father laughed heartily. It was obvious that he was very comfortable with the flattery. After laughing, he quickly shook his head. There were too many bosses above him, and it was not easy for him to survive. Some flattery was enough to be enjoyed behind closed doors, but it was not to be taken seriously. How is that possible? You think too highly of me, haha. The Heavenly Father laughed again and said seriously, Darkseid and I are only the representatives of good and evil. We don't have the ability to create the multiverse. The real creators call themselves the Watchers. Their power is far beyond mine, and they have power that neither Darkseid nor I can fathom. Goddess Thea, as the leader of the new gods, we only use our divine power and divine positions. The Watchers have long surpassed all kinds of rules. Their level is far beyond the new gods, and they are omnipotent and omniscient. The Heavenly Father's voice was a little heavy. He had worked so hard to get to where he was today, and it was hard to imagine that there were bosses above him. Thea had reservations about the Heavenly Father's words. The Watchers might be omnipotent, but they were definitely not omniscient. In her opinion, this group of Watchers was similar to Marvel's transcendental gods. Their power was boundless, but they were still one step away from being omniscient. This was evident from Darkseid's deliberate plan to confront the anti-Watchers. She lowered her head and thought for a moment. So you're saying that what happened in the multiverse just now has something to do with them? It has something to do with them, and it has nothing to do with them at the same time. The Heavenly Father looked like he was going to have a long talk. Thea hurriedly pretended to listen carefully. The Watchers created the multiverse to monitor and record everything that happened in it, while the Anti-Watchers destroyed the multiverse to maintain the number of universes within a certain range. From what I understand, this is a way to balance the universe. They are both forces of order. Thea nodded to show that she understood. In her opinion, although the Anti-Watchers were reduced to dogs in the later stages, they were still the creations of God. She had seen the antimatter universe in a hurry back then, and although it was chaotic, there was still order. As far as I know, there is another force outside of the multiverse. They are called the third party. The Watchers, the Anti-Watchers, and the third party. These three forces are intertwined. The Watchers and the Anti-Watchers have always been on guard against the third party, but the gap between the universes just now gave the third party a chance. A multiverse that represents darkness has been born. The Heavenly Father's expression was a little gloomy. He had not even finished dealing with Darkseid, and now there was another wave of villains. He felt that the task on his shoulders was very heavy. The Dark Multiverse, the Third Party and Barbatos. Thea combined the Heavenly Father's words and her own memories, then connected the whole story with Batman's incident. She finally had a clear understanding of the relationship between the two. If Batman was just an ordinary person before, be it in body or soul, he was very ordinary. However, from the moment he was mixed with the Omega effect and was used by the third party to build the Dark Multiverse, he was no longer ordinary. He had connected the multiverse and the Dark Multiverse. His body was still the same body, and his soul was still the same soul. However, in a sense, he, who had traveled through the river of time, was almost immortal. It was just that he did not know it. Thanks to him, the scale of the entire universe had automatically increased by a level. From the original parallel universe and multiverse, it had evolved into a composite universe. In the future, it could even become an omnipotent universe. Chapter 776. From the perspective of the universe and even the higher-ups, such as the Watchers, this was a cause for celebration. To them, the upgrade of the universe was like the corn in their field. The longer it grew, the better it was. Such a good result naturally had to be recorded and popularized on a large scale in the future. But from the perspective of an individual or a god, it was terrible to have a bunch of enemies for no reason. Your Majesty, can we make a move first? Her so-called goal of making a move first was self-evident. The Heavenly Father sighed. It's not that I don't want to, but that universe is sealed up layer by layer. The flow of time inside is completely different, and we can't enter at all. Maybe 10 years, maybe 100,000 years, I can't say for sure when that universe will be completely open. The ability to create a universe is already beyond my limit. After figuring out the whole story, Thea resolved her doubts and prepared to leave. The Heavenly Father was a good boss, comforting her not to feel burdened. The Earthling you mentioned who was teleported away by the Omega effect must be found as soon as possible. The longer he wanders in the river of time, the greater the damage to the timeline. If he returns to the point of time he left by himself, the entire universe will be destroyed. Thea hurriedly asked why he said that. The Omega effect is the power of origin. It follows this human, and every time it teleports, it accumulates energy. If it follows the human's footsteps and returns to your point of time, it will form a paradox, causing an explosion at the source. The energy of this explosion will have no problem piercing through 3 or 4 universes, and the universe that bears the brunt of it will have no chance at all. Do you understand? Thea understood a little. Wasn't this a more advanced causal weapon? The ray shot out from the source followed the flow of time back to the origin, and the cause didn't produce any results. Instead, it returned to the cause. Boom, it all exploded. Now Batman was a human-shaped bomb, the kind that could blow up several universes with one explosion. She said goodbye to the Heavenly Father with a lot on her mind and returned to the Batcave. Miss Thea, our master. The old butler saw her and hurriedly asked. Dead. She replied in a bad mood. The old butler is shocked. Thea doesn't want to embarrass the old man, so she explains carefully, It's more troublesome than death. I don't have any clue. She had yet to figure out the Omega effect, and now that she had the Eye of Obliteration, no one knew what would happen when the two energies came together. Of course, Darkseid might be able to answer her questions, but it would be impossible even if she thought with her toes. The Omega effect would cause Batman to jump around in the river of time. One day, he would be in a primitive society, and the next day, he would wake up on the battlefield of World War II. The effect of the Eye of Obliteration was to erase a person's existence, making everyone forget that person. However, in the long river of time, Batman was the only one who had forgotten himself. He was definitely suffering from amnesia. Sigh, Thea sighed. She could only analyze on a superficial level whether the convergence of the two types of energy would produce other effects. She really couldn't estimate the deeper effects. Traveling through time irregularly would lead to amnesia every time you traveled through time, and then amnesia again. Ordinary people would definitely die after traveling through time twice, but Thea believes that with Batman's tenacity, he would find his way home. Her mission was to stop him, or even kill him in the flow of time. If there was a glimmer of hope, she wouldn't do this. After all, they were old friends. However, she didn't have a choice. Between the universe and Batman, it wasn't difficult to choose. Bruce won't appear again. You should be mentally prepared. She patted the old butler's shoulder and left the Batcave. Traveling through time wasn't a problem for her, but it was unknown which point in time Batman traveled to and which timeline. It was completely inadvisable to blindly search for him. Thea didn't inform anyone. The people of the Righteous Alliance couldn't help with this matter. Diana was still teaching her disciple. She told the Valkyrie about a race of watchers. They lingered outside the universe and used the infant universe to power spaceships that were vast and magnificent than the Milky Way. They could destroy a universe with a raise of their hand and disinfect the universe at will. In their eyes, the gods were no different from insects in the fields. This was too much of a blow to their confidence. Fortunately, she had already set her sights on the highest. Otherwise, she would also have been devastated. She slightly released her soul power, and all the passers-by ignored her. Thea lay on the lawn in the center of the city. The warm sun shone through the clouds onto the earth. She smelled the fragrance of the green grass in her nose. The busy crowd walked around her. A sense of incompatibility welled up in her heart. I'd better go home and think about it. Just as she was about to leave, a low male voice sounded in her ear. I can help you. That's why I'm here. A tall man with golden hair and goggles in yellow and blue tights was standing not far away from her. Golden Vanguard? This guy is looking for me. Thea was a little confused. It wasn't that she looked down on him. With her soul power, she didn't want to be seen by others. Not many people could see her. Among those who could see her, there was definitely no Golden Vanguard. Especially when she realized that his gaze wasn't focused on her, she was even more confused. I can help you. That's why I'm here. Golden Vanguard said the same thing again. Thea didn't move. The ordinary people around her saw Golden Vanguard and started talking. Thanks to this guy's habit of being in the limelight, many people recognized him. Golden Vanguard. Can you give me an autograph? Golden Vanguard, what are your criteria for choosing a partner? A few middle-aged women surrounded Golden Vanguard and asked him a bunch of questions. Amidst the noise, Golden Vanguard looked around anxiously. He stretched his neck and shouted twice, I can help you. That's why I'm here. Thea's interest was piqued. With a snap of her fingers, she teleported herself and Golden Vanguard out of the crowd at the same time. You're looking for me? Asked Thea on the side of the road. Golden Vanguard saw her and breathed a sigh of relief. That's right. I'm here to look for you. Trust me, I can help you. What can you help me with? With all due respect, I don't think you can solve my current problem. I can. You need to find Batman, and I can help you, said Golden Vanguard with certainty. Thea looked him up and down carefully. With the powerful memory of a god, she noticed that this Golden Vanguard was a little different from the one she saw a while ago. There was a slight difference in his clothes. The key point was that this Golden Vanguard's eyes were not frivolous. Instead, they were filled with wisdom. You're another Golden Vanguard? The older version? You transmigrated here after the 25th century? She couldn't tell that this guy was also a transmigrator. Chapter 777. That's right. Your foresight is as good as ever. Please come with me immediately. I can't stay in the same timeline as my past, the elderly Golden Vanguard said urgently. Thea analyzed a lot of things in an instant. This guy knew her in the future and seemed to have a good relationship with her. She thought for a moment. I can't enter the timeline easily. If I enter the timeline with the divine position, the whole universe will be in chaos. I can only use my clone to enter with you. Please hurry up. I can't hold on for more than a few seconds. Thea didn't waste any more time. In the dense ripples, a clone walked out of her body. She didn't carry the divine power of the new god. Instead, she gave half of her magic power to the clone. The Golden Vanguard took out a sphere with a diameter of 2 meters from his belt and hurriedly went in. In less than a second, his body was already showing signs of blurring. Thea's clone hurriedly went in as well. The Golden Vanguard activated the controller. The sphere exploded with unparalleled energy and directly pierced through time and disappeared from the side of the road. Sensing that the connection between the original body and the clone was not blocked, she sighed and turned to go home. Thea's clone and the future Golden Vanguard began a great operation to find the old man who had lost his footing, Bruce Wayne. Even with the help of the Golden Vanguard, who came from a more distant future to help, there was still no result. At countless points in time, the timeline was like an airtight net firmly blocking the way, and silently mocking them. Batman could be at any point in time, and they were painstakingly searching for him like looking for a needle in a haystack. 3 days later, she knew that she couldn't hide it from everyone. She could only choose to tell the Righteous Alliance. If Batman comes back, he will destroy the world. Green Lantern HL asked in disbelief. Thea rubbed her head. The clone entering the river of time still had an impact on the original body. Her spirit power had not recovered by half and now it was flowing all the way. That's what the Heavenly Father said. I believe him. Everyone fell silent. The same question was in front of everyone. Should they sacrifice their friends or the world? The superheroes lowered their heads and didn't say anything. Although Batman had a lot of bad habits, they still felt uncomfortable when he suddenly disappeared. Since the few of them couldn't help much, Barry suggested that he might be able to lend a hand. Thea hurriedly pulled him back. You should stay at home and think about marriage. Don't make trouble for me. Time flew by quickly, and 30 days and nights had passed. The deep-seated effects caused by Batman's disappearance had yet to be seen, and the short-term problems had finally surfaced. The Gotham criminals who were shrouded in fear of Batman had begun to show their faces. Whether it was Penguin Man, Scarecrow, or Two-Face, these were Batman's old rivals. They had a keen sense of smell. Even if no one told them, they could sense something. Batman was gone, dead. The skies of Gotham had changed. At first, they only sent their subordinates to test the waters, but when they discovered that only a few deputies were attacking the criminals, and the terrifying black figure never appeared, the criminals began to party all night long. The new bureau chief was in a terrible fix. Thea sent a letter to the Gotham police station through the city government. It said that Sergeant Bruce Wayne was sick. Now that the new bureau chief had just been appointed, he had to take over such a mess. Needless to say, it was very depressing. The Justice League offered assistance, but unfortunately, it was rejected by Nightwing Dick Grayson, who rushed back to Gotham to take charge of the situation. Wayne's old house was still brightly lit, but the one sitting at the head of the table was now a young man. Young Master Drake, have something to eat. The old butler brought a plate of food for the third-generation Robin. Unfortunately, his mind wasn't on it at all. He only waved at the old butler. At this moment, he was flipping through the Wayne family history with bloodshot eyes, and occasionally made some notes. After 10 minutes, he rubbed his eyes. Miss Thea was right. Bruce did change some of the history. This Wayne family history book is not quite the same as what I remember. There are many bat marks left behind to guide us to find him. Batman is still alive. "He's still waiting for us to save him," Tim Drake said softly, as if he was encouraging himself. The old butler sighed. Watching Bruce Wayne walk step by step until today, his sorrow was far greater than any of the other Robins. However, he wasn't as impatient as the young man. From Superman, Barbara, Diana, and the others who were close to Thea, he pieced together the truth. Once Bruce returned, the whole universe would explode. He didn't know how correct this view was, but he knew Bruce Wayne. He was a noble person. If he knew that he could cause such an outcome, even if it was only a 10% chance, he wouldn't have returned. In other words, Batman was actually dead. After a month of suffering, many people had already accepted reality, such as the criminals in Gotham and the few members of the Bat team. Barbara handed the title of Batgirl to the big lowly Cassandra. She once again became an oracle, pulling the Huntress and Tommy, who had rushed over from Star City. Laurel reformed the Raptor team. She was using her own method to protect Gotham and fulfill Bruce's last wish. Dick Grayson, who had returned once again, rejected the support of the Justice League. He used his Nightwing codename to shoulder the heavy burden, gathered the remaining members of the team, and went out early and returned late every day to fight the criminals. The only one who hadn't given up was Tim Drake. He still stubbornly believed that he could save Batman. The old butler couldn't bear to tell the truth, and could only silently accompany him. Not long after, it was late into the night. The secret door of the old house opened, and Nightwing Dick and Damian, who had changed into casual clothes, walked out. "Jason is too much. He's smearing Bruce's name. I must catch him next time." With his father's death, the brat Damian suddenly returned to his taciturn and unapproachable state. He coldly greeted the few of them and returned to his room to sleep alone. "Tim, I need you to help me. Damian's methods are becoming more and more violent. I don't want him to become another Jason Todd." Nightwing stood beside Tim, trying to make his tone less serious as he spoke. "Have you all given up? Are you just going to ignore Bruce?" Tim asked with a hoarse voice. Nightwing deliberated over his words. "You don't understand the consequences. We have to make a choice. I know what your choice is. I'll think of a way." After saying that, Tim Drake closed his book and left the room. Nightwing poured himself a glass of wine and downed it in one gulp. He felt very tired. He was the first-generation Robin, Jason Todd was the second-generation Robin who killed indiscriminately, and the third-generation Robin who had just slammed the door and left. Batman's vision was really unique. Every generation of Robin had a frighteningly strong personality. Each person had a different idea. No one could convince the other. Chapter 778. Tim Drake walked out of Wayne's old house dressed like a nobleman. It was drizzling outside, and the rain washed over the city. Faint gunshots could be heard in the distance. In fact, as the third Robin, he was not as dispirited and uneasy as Nightwing thought. He was not a substitute for anyone, and he did not need anyone to command him. He had his own way of doing things. Nightwing lacks courage, and he doesn't dare to take that step. But I can. He walked around the Batcave and looked at the Batsuits on the equipment rack, saying thoughtfully, Gotham did not care who was under the Batsuit. He only needed the symbol. He quickly put on an old version of the Batsuit and rode out of the Batcave on his motorcycle. Nightwing was troubled by Jason Todd. To Tim, this was simple. He just needed to take him down and put him in jail. Then, he would show the Batman suit to intimidate Gotham and stabilize the situation. Finally, he would focus on finding Bruce. This was the best and fastest way to solve the problem. That was what he thought, and that was what he did. The motorcycle moved silently through the streets and alleys, drawing arcs in the night. He planned to solve the internal problems first before working together to deal with the external problems. The first problem was to find Jason Todd, the second Robin before him. Unlike Nightwing, Tim had never seen Jason before. When he joined the Bat Squad, Jason had already revived and left Gotham. To him, the name was more like a symbol. Is it here? Tim fiddled with his watch and quickly found the information he needed. Unlike the previous two Robins, he paid more attention to the capabilities of technological products. Many alien technologies that had entered Earth had been studied by him. He did not have the cautious attitude of Bruce. In his view, whether it was alien technology or Earth technology, they were all just tools. The motorcycle stopped lightly, and what came into view was an abandoned factory. Thea's large-scale imitation of alien products had created countless jobs, but it had also destroyed more than half of the traditional manufacturing industry. Many people had changed their businesses in time to avoid bankruptcy, but there were also those who were stubborn. In just a month, they had been swept into the dustbin of history. The factory in front of him was one of them. Tim didn't care about what was produced here before. He only knew that Jason Todd, who he was looking for, was hiding under the factory. After he cautiously entered the factory, the soil not far away from him moved, and a huge dark red plant quietly drilled out of the soil. The layers of flower buds opened, and two beautiful women looked in the direction he left. One of them had red hair and wore dark green tights. The other woman was wearing a short-sleeved, narrow skirt and high heels. She was wearing glasses and looked like a beauty in the workplace. Poison Ivy and his secretary, Miss Maisie, were observing from the shadows. Thea felt that the Bat team would be at a loss if they lost their support. Considering that Tommy and Laurel would also join the fray, she sent Poison Ivy, a local from Gotham, to help them in secret. Hanging out with Sia every day, under the influence of her surroundings, the secretary, who was originally a straight girl but now completely turned gay, happened to be at Poison Vine's house. Since she had nothing to do, she took the opportunity to come over and take a look. "Why is it so messy here?" The secretary heard the gunshots in the distance and found it hard to believe. The whole world was busy, and there were people here shooting in the streets. Poison Ivy shrugged. "How would I know? Let's go in and take a look." The plant behind her spewed out a pile of pollen. The secretary knew that the pollen was used to confuse people's vision, so she walked in leisurely. Tim Drake didn't know that someone was following him and left a lot of traces. The secretary, who had undergone countless training, casually followed him. The underground space was huge, and there were faint sounds of conversation. "It's unbelievable. You actually built your own bat cave, Jason Todd. You shouldn't have usurped that cloak." What followed was a series of violent banging sounds. The sound was so loud that intermittent echoes could be heard from the thick and heavy ground. "You shouldn't have come here. This isn't your masquerade party," a low voice said. "I'm not playing a game, Jason. I'm here to arrest you. I won't allow you to smear Bruce's name." The two were soon fighting with punches and kicks. TSK. "Look, these men are actually fighting for some false reputation," Poison Ivy said casually. The secretary wasn't so hostile to men. She took out the green light ring and used it to reflect the scene of their fight. Her combat ability could fight with Madame Siva for dozens of rounds. The secretary's vision was much better than Poison Ivy's. As if she was watching a competition, she began to explain with interest. "This Tim is very powerful. His strength and intelligence have achieved a perfect combination. His strong skills and agile thinking are indeed worthy of being the young talent that Batman values." Poison Ivy was very self-aware. If she didn't mutate, she would only be a university student who stayed in the laboratory. She couldn't be compared to Miss Maisie, who was a trump card that could take on dozens of fully armed soldiers. "You think highly of him?" "No, he lost because Jason didn't show any mercy. One side went all out while the other held back. His ending is already decided." As if she had seen the ending, the secretary was a little disappointed. The sharpness in her eyes disappeared and was replaced with a vase-like smile. As the former bodyguard of Luther, who was good at courting death, her judgment was accurate. Although Tim came with an urgent desire to solve everything, he didn't kill his predecessor. On the contrary, the other side didn't have any scruples and didn't show any mercy. Realizing that he had made a mistake, Tim wanted to salvage the situation. Unfortunately, they were both Bruce's apprentices. Although their fighting styles were different, they were familiar with each other's moves. At least, Jason was familiar with Tim's moves. On the other hand, Jason came back from the dead and wandered around the world for many years. He absorbed the essence of fighting from many sects. In countless battles to the death, his martial arts could be said to have improved a lot. His clever mind didn't delay Tim's fate of defeat. He had neither the belief of victory nor the moves to win. The result was self-evident. Your eyes are full of fear and confusion. You're the one who tarnished these clothes, Jason said as he clenched a bat dart and stabbed it into Tim's chest. What a ridiculous outfit. Taking off Tim's bat mask, he looked at the young face that was coughing up blood. He turned and left the battlefield. Tim only felt that his body was getting colder and colder. There were many fractures all over his body. The large amount of blood loss made his consciousness fade. He knew that he had completely failed. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.